This podcast is a production of Unfiltered Studios. If you would like to know more about joining Unfiltered Studios, please visit our website at unfpod.com for more information.
Or the ultimate question really is like, what's the most obnoxious fan base? Like
Star Wars.
25 years ago.
Easily.
Well, they're
Like the
both
worst
becoming
thing-
annoying, though. That's the problem.
They are.
Yeah, like
but
who's the
All
most
right.
obnoxious?
most obnoxious Star
Wars.
Wars?
Sam, I'm going to answer this right now. We just Cam, we talked about this last week.
Yes.
Wrestling fans, Star Wars fans, comic book fans.
Yeah.
I do love wrestling.
Well, how dare you?
I do love wrestling
too.
Me too.
That's a good point.
My other
That's a
podcast
good
is
point.
Wrestling Podcast. It's wrestling fans, Star Wars fans, comic book fans.
I
I've said
feel
for a
like- I
long
feel
time,
like-
like the worst thing about Star Wars is Star Wars fans.
Yes.
Yeah, but the
I had
All
a
right.
conversation
Used to be
earlier
as
on
bad as they
Facebook
are.
Yeah,
with somebody
come on,
about that. Yeah, I talked about
Sam, to
that
answer your
with
question, wrestling fans are the most obnoxious fans of all time.
Easily.
right there.
Easily.
Oh,
Oh, I do. But maybe AEW fans, maybe. That's
No, that's
Jason
a good
did
point,
say-
too.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Jason did say comic fans, which I think they go above the rest.
oh yeah,
No,
they
no, no, no.
Well,
They're-
comic
Batman
fans are a lot
fans.
worse now than
Do
they
a
were
wrestling
back
podcast
then.
for 4 years. Wrestling fans are the fucking most toxic fans.
Yes, they
your
are.
wrestling
agree.
podcast.
I agree.
They work
Ryan,
themselves into a
what's
shoe
your
way
wrestling
too much.
podcast?
I was doing what I do. I ended it, but it was called Front Face Lock Podcast, and it was we interviewed a shit ton of wrestlers. We were WWE fans. We had AEW fans on. Wrestling fans are the fucking worst people.
AEW fans?
AEW, they're the
What
worst.
was the worst thing they ever did?
Everything.
No matter what WWE does, AEW does it better. No matter what,
God.
no matter what TNA does, AEW does it better. No matter what, MLW does, AEW. It's like, no, I can give you 20 points in a fucking slideshow about why you're wrong.
Mhm.
They don't want to fucking admit it.
Like I enjoyed TNA
Yeah, they
up to a certain point, and then just moved away from
Be
it.
careful how you word that.
They act like wrestling started in 2019, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. They're like, oh, did you hear this guy Chris Jericho? It's like, yeah, we've heard of him for fucking 40 years.
Like
we
this
all know
new guy
about
on the scene.
So this guy Edge, he's
Yeah,
really
exactly.
cool.
You mean
God.
That's the thing about AEW.
I love
it's
when you
reminding me now
shape it
of
on this, Charlie.
WCW in the 90s because all of a sudden all the guys that weren't popular go to AEW and it's like, oh my God, they have a second life. And I remember there was a wrestler who said going to WCW was like going to the elephant's graveyard.
Yeah. I mean, look
Yeah,
at Kurt
yeah,
Angle.
Go ahead.
I'll end
Go
my
ahead.
wrestling thing on this because I'm going to start up my old wrestling podcast again. But AEW is what WCW became. Like,
Yep.
towards the end. And it was bad. I've watched every Nitro. I've watched every Thunder. It's fucking terrible.
Have you watched Reliving
I
the
think
War
AEW is a little
on
more
YouTube yet?
watchable.
Yes, I've watched
Fair
everything.
enough.
I'm a fucking wrestling encyclopedia. Another episode, I'm sure we could fucking talk about it.
If you ever want me to come on, I'll come on.
Although,
Yeah, 100%.
although
Same here.
Ryan,
I love
Me too.
wrestling.
I'm restarting the show. I will have all you guys on to talk wrestling.
I love wrestling, my brother. All right, so
That sounded so sexual.
although Ryan, real quick,
Yeah.
I love the fact that Tony has enough money to keep it going, and that there's a place for other wrestlers to go to make money. It isn't just WWE.
That's
Yeah.
great.
And
I
there's
love
enough.
that,
that's a
but
good point. Yeah,
I
that's
love
a
that.
great
I
point.
love the fact there's
but-
another promotion. I just don't like what they're doing with it. I love MLW. I love
I
fucking
think there's still enough
NWA.
good in there.
There's
Not
there's
everything's
stuff-
perfect, but it's enough good in it for me to keep watching.
There's good
Well,
in there, but I
that's a
love
good point.
NWA. I love MLW. I love TNA. I love WWE. AEW has its good moments, but overall, WWE is a better product. Overall, overall.
And you got to think, the established now. Who's been more established? When AEW came along, you got to realize their roster was guys you heard of on the independent circuit, maybe, and then all of a sudden they were coming in, and then what happened was that when that happened, all of a sudden the guys were starting to jump ship from it, and it looked like it was going to be another Monday Night War. But what happened was that the pandemic hit, okay,
That killed
And-
everything. For the
and
most
that
part.
basically slowed
for
everything
WWE.
down. And then what happened was that AEW was getting up there, and remember Vince stepped away, and Triple H took over, and all of a sudden it became like this new thing. And AEW isn't selling out. They keep saying, although they're selling out everywhere, they're not selling out
No.
everywhere.
No.
Well, and to
They-
your point, James, WWE has more money, so they're just hiring their
No, they
buddies.
don't. They don't. AEW has just as much money.
Let me finish my thought though. Like I think they're hiring their cronies in corporate media just to pick down on them.
Yes.
Well, I think
The ghost of Ted Turner.
I'm Ted Turner, and I lost the contract.
Cam, I'm sorry to take this over. I will have a side conversation with everybody here. I would love to talk wrestling with everybody here.
You guys need to be on the Off Topic podcast. It's a wonderful show. But
my other show is at Front Face Pod. I'm switching it soon, but it's at Front Face Pod.
Yes,
it's my old wrestling show. You can check out all our old clips and interviews and everything.
And this has been a hell of a wrestling match. Be very loose and kind of talk how we got into wrestling and do an overview of some of the merchandise like video games. But I'm also just an open forum. If we want to deviate a bit, that's fine. So, James, welcome back. We got a special guest in a world where we have a very special guest. One man from the TW Takes podcast is none other than Bishop joining us today. Welcome.
What up?
Thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate being here. The intro to the Terrible Wrestling Takes podcast is about a 30-second clip of people saying it all wrong. So it's all good, man. I'll add it to the list.
Oh, James, you never have to apologize. You're good. But so Terrible Wrestling Takes, but as TW Takes on Twitter. And I have followed a lot of your posts and some of your live chats, and it seems like you're just always just a delight because you're trying to actually kind of put some thought into this on why do we have these hot takes? Why do we have?
Absolutely. That's the impetus. When we have conversation, everyone says you're stupid. Everyone says you're wrong.
Right.
So I bit the bullet at the beginning. I'll call it Terrible Wrestling Takes. You guys don't even have to tell it. But it's always about the conversation. Listening to a couple episodes from you guys, I can tell that if it starts with passion and then you have the conversation, nothing's off limits. There is no right, there is no wrong. And art is up for interpretation.
Half the time we intend to just do 2-part chats and we end up having 7 to 8. So I'm pulling my hair out saying, where do I insert this? Okay, fine. This is next year's April Fool's special. April is the month of humor. And when I got in the habit of having 5 episodes a week, then that's where we're like, okay, perfect. Everybody gets their episode quicker. We have a themed week. I found out by accident that's way better. And so you can count on wrestling to be during a more comedic or sarcastic week. But I just casually knew about who the people were. Just like it was impossible not to, whether you sold the Walmart toy shelf or just them being merchandised on chips and barbecue sauce. Like, just wrestlers were everywhere. So I just always had fun seeing if they could actually stretch themselves in a movie other than just playing Thug Number 5. And
sure.
I figured this would be a fun excuse to also just talk about how they crossed over with wrestling. So I don't know about you guys. I always forget the name of this particular one. There was a WWF game from 2000. It had the goofiest soundtrack. Wow, wow. It's like almost like a Power Rangers, working out theme. I'm like,
it wasn't WWE SmackDown versus Raw, right?
I don't think it was Raw versus Raw. Yeah, it was WWF, and it was in 2000. And to make matters worse, it was so much fun, but my parents didn't want me playing the game because, long story short, my best friend next door had gotten the game used, and all the characters had inappropriate names locked into their characters. So all their characters ranged from, like Rico Suave number 5 to the most priceless one that we ended up quoting for years was Russian Bear Humper. And it's like, man. So yeah, someone had hacked into the game.
Was
I'm
it
trying to look
WWF Attitude?
It might have
Was it-
been, yeah.
Let me look. 2000
WWF, yeah. So
let's
Attitude
see.
came out in '99.
SmackDown, WrestleMania 2000. Attitude was 99. Yeah. Warzone.
yeah, whatever's WWF and from 2000 2001 is it might be
No Mercy. SmackDown 2. Know Your Role. With Authority. Betrayal. Jesus Christ.
it might just be WrestleMania 2000 because
It might be WrestleMania 2000. Yeah.
yeah, it was definitely Nintendo 64. Did they have any arcade games in you guys' area?
They did. They had one by me, which was WWF, and that was the Royal Rumble game, and that was like you could play like Hogan, Warrior, the Road Warriors.
Oh, sweet.
Big Boss Man. I think you could. I mean, most of the guys now are dead in that. So it's like it was like all you only had a certain amount to pick from the roster back then. And you have to realize like WWF at the time. See, I grew up during the time of the territories, right? So it was and you may know about this too, Bishop. The days of the territories where it was the WWF, Mid South, NWA, AWA, World Class Championship Wrestling, Don Owens up in Oregon, all those guys. So Vince was the guy that was basically looking into the wide spectrum of things. And wrestling, I kind of found out through a friend of mine when I was in like, fourth grade.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, I was just at the beginning of Hulkamania and the first WrestleMania. I remember that first WrestleMania because it was $39.95, and my father was like, "You're not watching that crap,"
That's how my folks were
But Dad,
too.
we could go to William Patterson College and we could watch it. I'm not paying that money to go sit around with a bunch of people screaming at a screen. And then my parents, I think when I was in sixth grade, they got me WrestleMania 2, and that was the one where Vince, if you know your wrestling history, it was always him trying to one-up everybody.
Yeah,
So
the boss has to do a takedown. Yeah.
Yeah, one year the NWA did a thing called Starrcade, and that was their version of WrestleMania. And they did it in two areas. It was the Omni in Atlanta and the Greensboro Coliseum in Greensboro, North Carolina. Okay, and they would switch the matches. So a bunch would take place in Greensboro, then they'd flip over to the Omni, then they'd flip back to Greensboro, right? But Vince said, "Okay, I'm going to do three spots, okay, and we're going to do it in certain areas, right?" So his thing was to do this. So they did this where they had it was the Long Island Coliseum, where the Islanders played. And the big match that night was Mr. T versus Roddy Piper in a boxing match. Okay.
I just say that aloud one more time. Mr. T,
Roddy Piper and Mr. T
in a boxing
match.
That's
okay.
awesome.
And that's when Roddy started to get fans because Mr. T was not welcomed as a wrestler in the WWF when he did the first WrestleMania.
Was it cross promotion for Rocky or
no? It wasn't even a cross promotion for Rocky. He was at the height of the A-Team, and his thing was they said, okay, we're going to get Mr. T involved because Hulk Hogan needs someone to take on Paul Orndorff, Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff, and Roddy Piper, and then they had the war to settle the score the one night, and Mr. T got involved. So then they hyped it so Mr. T and Hulk Hogan were a tag team against Roddy Piper and Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff. So then the second time they did WrestleMania, it was Mr. T versus Roddy Piper in a boxing match. Okay, the card at the Rosemont Horizon in Chicago was a 20-man battle royal. Okay, and then the last match, the match at the LA Sports Arena, was Hulk Hogan versus King Kong Bundy in a cage match. And the storyline was Hulk Hogan had bruised his sternum after Bundy big splashed him like 5-10 times. And Hulk was like trying to train, and all this shit. And, they were building that up. They were building that whole thing up. and it made millions. And then the third one he did at the Silver Dome, and that was the big match where Andre the Giant took on Hulk Hogan, and Hogan
Gotcha.
Hogan slammed Andre, and we thought that was the first time that was done. It wasn't. Andre had been slammed before. We just didn't see it, and then all of a sudden people were going, no, he's been slammed before. Stan Hansen slammed him, Kamala slammed him, and we were going like, that bullshit. And then like later when YouTube came along, everybody was going like, oh, what do you know? Huh?
Now we can fact check everything.
Yeah, now we can fact check. But when you grew up in the territories, in that territory era, the NWA was Dusty Rhodes, Ric Flair, Harley Race, Ivan Koloff, Nikita Koloff, Magnum TA. That was Southern wrestling, okay?
Southern
wrestling. They called it wrestling, not wrestling, wrestling. And that was the Mid-Atlantic area too. So they were kind of like the Crockett's were in cahoots with, it was Mid-Atlantic, but it was the NWA. They were the oldest wrestling association around. Okay, then you went down to Florida. That was Eddie Graham. And those were like guys that were going to come up to the WE, like, Ted DiBiase, Jake the Snake Roberts, all those guys. Mid-South was like that too. They were all in that area there. Then you went to Texas, and that was world-class championship wrestling.
Right.
That was the Von Erichs. That was the Missing Link, Kamal the Ugandan Giant, Chris Adams, Gino Hernandez. The Freebirds were down there. The Von Erichs were like the first family of Texas wrestling. And they're the ones that, if you ever read about them, they were always beset by tragedy, which was sad. That's a great thing to go over one night if we ever have the chance.
We could probably include it just as on a side tangent, just on celebrities who had a good career, but it just went downhill, like in the worst possible way. Like,
well, I mean, wrestlers are always known to have like the best career, and then it just goes to shit,
same
after
thing with
they
music
wrestle,
artists and some other entertainers. Comedians, they had great stand up, but not great movie output. So Bishop, you've had the honor of covering your boy John Cena, noting how Cody Rhodes is done, both as a human being and as a wrestler. And
what's going on with Cody Rhodes?
It's just people are just tired of some of the personas and other hot takes he's doing. But how about you, Bishop? Why did you think you really wanted to weigh in on that storyline? I know you mentioned in the episode, but for those listening,
so how Cody and Cena did their thing headed into Mania last year? Is that what you like in that?
Yeah.
No, so for me, it was the first time Cody had really faced adversity since coming back to WWE. So like in everything that was just spoke upon, there's always this massive baby face with a heel to overcome. And it seemed like when Cody came back to WWE, he was a baby face and nothing to overcome except for this history that he has, which is a beautiful history of his brother and his father being wrestlers that are well respected. So
the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes.
And everyone who loves wrestling has a Dusty and a Macho Man impression. There's very few that have a good Austin impression, which is ironic because we've heard Austin talk for years and years and years.
Let me tell you this: the first. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
First I had a hamburger. What? Then I had a cheeseburger. What? Then I had a milkshake. What? Then I pulled a can of whoop ass.
Right. Do you think there's going to be more ADW video games, or are they just putting their card in just what matters most? Make a good show WWE that you're kind of irrelevant compared to us.
AEW should focus on video games and alternatives. Eric Bischoff once said, or he actually says it often, you can be better than or different than, right? Yeah. So that's what made WCW so successful, is being different than. They couldn't compete with WWE, and AEW can't compete with WWE. It's like starting a cartoon company and trying to compete with Disney. Like, it's just not going to work. But if you start a cartoon company and you're different, that's how, you guys are movie guys, right? Like, Disney would take the award every year.
Yes.
And all of a sudden Ice Age comes out and it's like, nope. This Blue Sky company really figured some shit out.
I'm glad you brought that up.
I'll go back further than that.
Okay.
You look at Disney, and they had their little cutesy poo workshop set up with Mickey and Minnie and all that crap. And then all of a sudden, here comes MGM, And all of a
Yes.
sudden, here comes Warner Brothers, Disney's classical music, and MGM is like jazz, and like Warner Brothers is like freaking rhythm and blues, down and dirt. It's like three different types of music you have there.
Yep. And then you get even more anal retentive guys who are like, my music is this, even though it's classified as that. It's like, however they're gonna sell you, you're using variations of both hip hop and R&B or soul and funk. Take it or leave it, but be happy you got a career. But I'm glad you brought up the Ice Age thing. I listened to Kill the Messenger, and Kevin Gates is a very talented dude who's made a career being. He organizes testing groups for like secret preview screenings for different entertainers. So like if they want to see this TV pilot, it needs to be fleshed out. You got to recast this actor. You got to delete this subplot in this one movie. It's making kids cry and it's for families. He's done stuff like that. And he talked to the one controversial guy from Greece who's he was at Fox. Now he's at Paramount. I forget his name, Yorgos or something. And he had an interesting motto. I think it's kind of lame, but I understand it. And he's like, he's done it since Ice Age, and he's done it through Avatar and the new Planet Apes films, where it's like, Fox has no business being the studio that turned down what every other studio was going to say yes to instantly. So yes, we're going to say yes to this. Don't be the loser who says no. So I feel like everybody could have a bit of that motto, but I think you're right. AEW doesn't want to be the greater value of, wrestling. They don't want to be every other knockoff company, which blows its load, spends way too much money, and is like, no, we need to be investing slowly and still utilizing the basics, which is social media, word of mouth, interactivity with fans, after show.
You look at AEW when they came out in 2019, right? And they did All In, and they were I think they had some wrestlers at the G1, what was it called? That one in Madison Square Garden.
Yeah.
The big Japanese one. It was like the Young Bucks were there, and all these other wrestlers were there, and I think Cody wrestled there too that night.
My best friend Jeremy, who's now a California patrol officer, introduced me to some independent wrestling circuits here in the Dallas and Fort Worth area, and they were just kind of a delight because some of them were former WWE people just making their living just doing local wrestling things. Is like, and we actually got insurance and benefits. We made our own
reunion.
The thing.
That's the thing, because if you listen to Jesse Ventura when he did an interview one time, you talk about benefits and stuff. He said, I wanted to make a union of the wrestlers so we could have healthcare and benefits. And you know who ratted on me? Who? Hulk Hogan.
Hulk freaking Hogan. Yeah.
Hulk Hogan ratted on him, man. But you guys, the thing is that with these indie guys, they come in.
Guys, yeah.
It's the DIY. It's like a punk rock movement,
It's definitely punk rock. Many of the comic book artists I talked at the Tampa Con, same deal. Like they had done independent contracting for like, Dark Horse or Marvel, but they're like, it's over. I'm going to do my own thing and not be held down by the man.
Yeah.
Doing something I don't want to do. It's less time, it's less money, but 1,000% creativity. So my best work's going to come out.
Punk rock's the perfect example because it is that, right? Punk rock gets so independent, and all of a sudden, here comes a pop record from your favorite punk rock artist, right? And that's what happens here. But it ebbs and it flows. A couple, right? As you're saying, like in 2019, around the 2020, 2021 time, the indie scene dried up, and AEW and WWF were pulling everyone from the indies. But then over the last 2-3 years, these guys couldn't keep paying everyone. And now you have major stars back out on that indie scene. So that ebb and flow comes back. I'm sure it happens in all these industries, music and comics and otherwise, that the demand for what's cool, what's new that we don't have our hands on. Oh, come with us for a little bit, and then all of a sudden 2 years later.
It's like in 91 to 96. That whole alternative music scene, you looked at bands that were on independent record labels, and then they would sign to a major label, and then it was like, oh fuck, they lost it, like they lost their way. I can remember, that's the great thing what I loved about when, like, I'm a big Replacements fan, and I'm a big Husker Du fan, is that when they jumped to Warner Brothers, they kept their artistic vision there, Granted, they were working on a major label, but the label's like, here, you do what you need to do.
Which is everything. Do everything. You got to do.
When you think about wrestling, I can remember like the great thing was back then was guys in those territories could go back and forth.
Yes.
They could be here, they could be there, they could be in the AWA one day. They weren't just kept in one area. And when you think about it too, when it was the Monday Night Wars and somebody jumped ship over to WCW, it was like, holy Christ, but somebody said it best. They said, WCW, like right after the NWO formed and everybody started coming in, it became the elephant's graveyard. Everybody was coming in on guys were like not big. We're now going over there. But the one thing that the undercurrent everybody forgets about, ECW. ECW was fucking phenomenal. And it wasn't just the hardcore. They had scientific guys in there. You ever see that match between Dean Malenko and Eddie Guerrero?
Yeah. I've heard of Guerrero, but I have not seen his fights.
Guerrero, when he got to the WWE, they kind of overplayed his character. But when he was in ECW, and he's part of that family of the Guerreros, which are like Mexican, wrestling. They have that whole history down there.
Yeah.
Well, they were luchadors, but they didn't have the masks. Okay. And then you got Dean Malenko, whose father was Boris Malenko, the man of 1,000 holds. Basically, Dean
That's
Malenko
what she said.
Well, yeah, but the wrestling style. They did a show one night. They did a show, and you guys remember who was the head of ECW? Paul Heyman. He basically brought these guys in. He was bringing guys in. Terry Funk, who had left the WCW, and was now coming in doing his hardcore stuff that he had done. He was known as the father of hardcore. You had Mick Foley. You had Sabu.
I like Mick Foley.
You had Eddie. You had Rey Mysterio at some point there. So that's what happened. Guys, I gotta just run to the bathroom. Hold on. You keep talking, all right? Hold on.
Hello, everyone. I'm Gorilla Monsoon, along with Bobby the Brain Heenan, on this very special Mother's Day weekend. One day of the year set aside to honor, to show respect for your mom. Unfortunately, 365 days would be more like it. But, Mom, to you out there in Las Vegas, my love, my honor, and my respect, and a special gift headed out your way, as I'm sure, Brain, that big gift headed for Beverly Hills.
Boy, you said a mouthful. I wish Mother's Day was every day. Last year, my mom got me a red Mercedes.
What do you mean, got you?
It was Mother's Day.
You're supposed to show your love and give something to your mom.
I'm her kid. How's that?
You're disgusting. Here we go.
We'll return after these messages.
Howdy folks, Howback here. We got a 90-minute weekly Shack Stop. It's growing all over the world. Find it at 2 p.m. and 10 p.m. Eastern Time on Mondays, then 3 p.m. on Wednesdays, then 7 p.m. on Thursdays. You can catch it on many more radio stations, 99.9 KERB, 1 p.m. Central Time, 2 p.m. Eastern on Mondays. Then catch the encore on Thursdays at 5 p.m. Central Time, 6 p.m. Eastern. Then catch it Wednesday mornings at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, 10 a.m. Central on 107.7 K-Twins. Then hang out with us Wednesday afternoons on MXTR and House Shack Radio, 3 p.m. Eastern Time. Then Thursday, get up bright and early with us on 95.7 Web Radio at 6 a.m. Pacific Time, 9 a.m. Eastern. Of course, we've got your Friday covered as well. 12 p.m. Eastern Time on MXTR FM and 10 p.m. Eastern Time, 9 p.m. Central, 107.7 K-Twins. Find everything on HowShack.com. HowShack.
If you like small-town mystery, crazy news, and wild history, then the Florida Men on Florida Man podcast is for you. Each week, Josh Mills and Wayne McCarty bring you the absolute best Florida has to offer. So if you're looking for a show that's safe for the family, but funny enough to help you escape everyday life, then listen to the Florida Men on Florida Man podcast. That's Florida Men, plural, on Florida Man podcast.
Do you ever find yourself thinking about who would win in a fight between Goku and Superman? Hi, I'm James Gavsey, and on the Who Would Win show, me and my co-host Ray ignore anything important happening in the outside world and debate fictional battles between characters from comics, movies, and video games.
We got a new show every week, and almost always am I the winner.
Yeah, not true, Ray.
In the past, we've discussed such matches as Captain America versus Darth Vader, Solid Snake versus the Iron Giant, classic matchups like RoboCop versus Terminator, and even the Muppets versus Sesame Street.
That one was crazy. So if you're a fan of geek culture and love a spirited debate, check out the Who Would Win Show wherever you get your podcasts, or check us out at whowouldwinshow.com.
Oreo is joining us in the mayhem. Again, man, you bring it every time. Glad you can meet Bishop. Terrible wrestling takes. So you're often pretty good at researching various merchandise. Have you ever collected like wrestling trading cards or other merchandise? Or you're just like interesting.
The only thing merch-wise of wrestling I have is a Rey Mysterio card that I got ages ago, and the New Age Outlaws 2-pack from decades ago. I bought it at a toy store. And then I got some other wrestling figures that I got from my aunt's son last decade that he sent up because he was cleaning out his toys and whatnot. So a couple wrestling figures are in there. It was Monster, Brock Lesnar, Triple H, Undertaker.
All right.
And I think I kept Rey Mysterio too.
Yeah. It's always interesting, though, how that was kind of the mainstream. You're going to play a character and we're going to have these unusual storylines, even though it's technically a reality show, that's broadcast in the country. Bishop, did you have any other highlights from like the video game eras, like where you're just like, this is the perfect must-have game? Like I played as most of my icons.
Yeah. I think the WWF Royal Rumble that was mentioned earlier as an arcade game, that was actually, I believe, a Nintendo game as well. Yes. And that was amazing. There was also like a Wrestling Superstars game from even before that had like the masked wrestler with the star on it and this Ric Flair knockoff. So those games, in my opinion, up until I believe No Mercy for 64, up until those early games were better than anything until, because everything they tried to do, like I had WCW Thunder, which was trash. I still have it.
Was it just very junky with plotting, storylines, and moves?
There was like 3 modes. There was solos, tag team, cage match, and like you can type in a button code, a cheat code to get all the wrestlers, including developers and things like that. So you can literally beat Goldberg with Stacy Keibler just by powerbomb.
What?
Yeah, that was fun. That was the fun part about cheat codes back then, was that
anybody's a badass, I guess.
Anyone,
you could unlock everybody, and it didn't matter who you had. But
so just no care put to it, like Bishop's saying.
Yeah, there was never any issue. It was just fun. You put in the cheat code, everything's unlocked.
He's got it right now for those.
This is a different one. This is
Rage Cage.
Yeah.
Oh God, I remember that
for Sega CD. Which this is the closest to the WWF Royal Rumble arcade game that I have. It has very similar action styles. You can see like where the drop kick is.
Gotcha.
The arcade game
maneuver around.
Yeah, more characters than
because it's interesting how they once we get to the 2000s. Let alone even the 2010s, they not only endorse so many different personas, but then they pretty much become like every official sports game after a while, where it's like, we got to update it with the current roster. We got to have them dedicate their personas. And
that's why they've been doing like, WWE 2K24, 2K25.
There was one recent one. They brought The Rock back and he was like exclusively promoted. It was like 2016, 2018 or something.
Yeah.
And it's like, I did see a cool review about it where everyone was saying very inspired button combos, but like you guys are saying, kind of a diamond in the rough. People just got to where it's like, we would prefer to just watch them, the matches on USA Network or as of now, Netflix. My pal Tony has recently rediscovered wrestling again, and he watches all the live streams every time they're on Netflix. And he is one of those where he's both self-aware of the bullshit politics behind the scenes, and he looks forward to who he's going to root for or against. Like he's a self-aware animal, if you will. Like where he just is like, yeah, he's like, Cody, you're fucking going down. I'm tired of your bullshit. And then he gets into some of this other stuff, and I'm like, hey, yeah, Mr. Dotson, I love you, but chill. Like there's so much. There's already enough intensity on the screen. They just need to get this intenser in the living room.
I'm sorry.
Give him the chair.
That's why I just got done with reliving the war on YouTube for Wrestling Bios. He spent the last 5.5 years covering the Monday Night War and pay-per-views. Yeah, all of it. Like it was amazing.
How many videos did that take? Like 10?
No, it was 5.5 years, and it ended on 270 something videos because he did all of it, and he hasn't done SmackDown and Thunder yet, but hopefully he will. But he's covered the pay-per-views.
He's got a new fan. Thanks over you, but if you don't mind forwarding that, I wouldn't mind.
Definitely
sharing that in the group.
Yeah, give us a look on that because I like hearing about that Monday Night War and how WWE was almost like at the brink of collapsing.
Yeah, and he actually turned me into a WCW fan. Like in the beginning, I was WWF for a while, and then as time went on, I was more TNA, and then I liked ECW because then I watched ECW, just the pay-per-views of it.
Yeah.
And enjoyed the shit out of that. And then I was like, I never really watched WCW. And then he came along and did all that shit. And I got hooked. Like, it's really fun to get hooked on this shit.
And that's a good documentarian. If they can take any kind of pop culture, regardless of whether they're using a humorous narrative approach or not, and it's like, here's what I'm going to cover. If you like what you see, sling along for the ride.
You guys do know that WCW, before they were Nitro, and they used to have a show on Saturday nights. That was their big show.
TNT.
It was on TBS.
TBS. Sister channel.
It's called World Championship
I shared
Wrestling.
the channel too.
And that was the forerunner to what what was going to happen with Nitro. Because then they started saying, okay, look, we're only on once a week. We're a dying fish, basically. And you got to realize when you hear the history of WCW, when they were bringing in different people to run the company, because the Crockett's were there, they owned it, but they were bringing in guys like, who was it? Like, Jim Hurd, who was like not even a wrestling fan. I think he ran a pizza company.
That's what the irony. They get all these guys. It would be just like, again, Navy SEALs like Ventura and all these other guys.
Yeah,
they didn't plan on being a wrestler, but it just happened.
These were guys who were running that thing, and they had a guy named Cowboy Bill Watts who was a wrestler, but basically he had all these rules like you can't jump from the top rope, you can't do this, you can't do that, and it was like, how fucking boring can you be with the wrestling,
Yeah.
And then, when you hear about it, you realize that, when they brought in Eric Bischoff, who I think was...
Not to be confused with Bishop, our lovely guest here.
That guy who saved it from going downhill.
Yeah.
Creating the NWO, creating, making Hulk Hogan turn heel, doing all this shit. It was like, oh, okay, this is new direction we can go into,
Yeah.
Was there ever anyone who's kind of like with comics, who's getting the license to use their image and like spin-off material was just a pain in the butt? Was there anyone who ever turned to heel, so to speak, on that, where you're like, stop it? Like, I gotta, like, if I use your
contract.
Well, yeah.
That thing is funny as shit. The funniest part about that, literally, if you decide to watch Wrestling Bios, I shared the link in the chat.
Yes.
Pay attention to how many times when it gets to the NWO part of it. Pay attention to how many times he comes out with a NWO shirt. He gets paid 20 grand every time he wears that shirt.
Oh,
really?
20 grand just for wearing
That's
the
a
shirt.
highway robbery.
Now think about that. 20 grand every appearance on Nitro and pay-per-views.
Who do you think they do that to now? Nobody. He's the only one they were going to take a risk on. Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
20
grand. Yeah. That's low budget. That's low income right now.
Hogan was like fucking like I remember like Hogan was he was everywhere. He had a Hulk Hogan workout set for kids.
That's the mania, brother.
Who were like, okay, yeah, we get it. Say your prayers, eat your vitamins. Prayer to the big Hulkster. Okay, we get that. I wanted to see guys like freaking Andre the Giant, or it was like the.
It's like Hogan, ew.
Hogan, fuck Hogan. I got tired of Hulk.
For real. He is boring, but it's like he's dead now. But yeah, his legacy and he's an asshole, but his legacy endures. But he fucked himself over.
He's a good example of just like people had. He's kind of like a Gene Simmons type, where everyone had to put the artist separate from the art. Okay.
He basically screwed himself for two reasons. Number one, the whole thing with him using the N bomb. On that video. Number two, him endorsing a certain president when most of his fans are people who don't like that guy.
Yeah.
Well, not to mention he had John Cassar. That's right, the future director of hit shows like The Orville, Revolution, and 24. One of his first gigs after doing syndicated shows like La Femme Nikita and Baywatch was doing all of Hogan's movies for TNT, like The Ultimate Weapon.
What was that one? Thunder in Paradise?
Oh, yeah. Wrestling Bios covers that too. But he has a funny theme for it as well. He's so cool. He's also from Ireland. So he has an accent,
he has
but it's
an
not super
international
heavy.
take on what this meant to the other countries. And
he's not biased at all. He just gives his honest opinion on the shit, and I loved it. And it's beautiful. He's like he used to downplay himself.
Wrestling Bios on YouTube. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he's like, I don't want to be at a convention or anything and, meet people. I'm like, okay, I get that.
Has there been any big turnouts for conventions? It seemed like other than Hogan and Ventura giving copies of his book, it seemed like
we've had wrestle conventions here.
Ric Flair?
No, Flair does it on and off, generally you get the guys that you remember from certain eras. Like one year I can remember out here in Jersey, we had Sergeant Slaughter, the Honky Tonk Man, Greg the Hammer Valentine, Brutus the Barber Beefcake. I forgot who else was out here. I think Luscious Johnny Valiant before he passed away.
They can't pay me enough, brother.
Kevin Nash.
Kevin Nash.
Kevin Nash is a fucking great guy, man. He's just like he's
humble.
He's like I met the Iron Sheik, man. That guy was cool, because, and I'm going to tell you this, the first time I went to the Chiller convention because that's where they were doing that. It's him.
There seems to be a lot of crossover with horror fans for some reason.
Well, yeah, because the horror fans are wrestling fans too. So you got, that, but you got, there's a table, like a table across the room, and it's Greg the Hammer Valentine, Brutus the Barber Beefcake, Captain Lou Albano, Iron Sheik, and Nikolai Volkov, right? And I think there were a couple other guys there that I just told me, and I'm looking and I see the Iron Sheik, and he's sitting there. He has an American flag do-rag on, 9/11 never forget T-shirt. And I'm looking and I'm like, wait, this is the guy who used to get in the ring and say, Iran #1, Russia #1, USA, Hawk. Like that. And he's like, I'm like, wait a minute. And then you start reading back. He's like, he came to America with practically nothing. He's loved this country. It was all a fucking act. And I had to think that in the back of my head. These were all fucking acts.
Yeah.
if they did so,
but they did it so convincing, so I guess they're good actors. Even though
I did a video on that dissociation shit with wrestling because I believed in all that shit too, but then as I got older, it wore off, and I was like, this is really dangerous when you think about fans who get so deranged and shit. It's bad because you get them fans that'll flip the fuck out and
He
storm
said he'd be
the
president. No, he's joking.
One guy. There was one time, Piper. I think it was Roddy Piper was in the Freebirds. Some they were wrestling somewhere and they were getting a lot of heat.
Really?
And this guy pulled out a knife and tried to stab someone. And there was there was a cop with his kid.
Yeah.
And the guy was trying to.
Cop. You get a wrestling contract.
There was a cop with his kid, like on top, like when you walk in. I think it was Madison Square Garden. I forgot who it was. And he went to go chase the guy with a knife, and the cop jumped down, and two other cops, New York City cops, came out of nowhere and just wrestled the guy down. And they told the wrestler, they're like, this guy was going to stab you. He's like, holy shit.
Yeah, that was on Dark Side of the Ring.
Yeah, they did cover that on that. Yeah.
Who was it? Piper?
No, it was someone else, but it was a very pivotal one, and I think they, even though it was one episode, they still would come back to it on just much like rock stars. Everybody has a stalker or someone who has gone simply. Can you imagine? I know you've already gone bananas, but it would be boring just to sit there just to kill someone. You're just like, well, you're not going to have any entertainment, lunatic, if you kill this person you admire.
Yeah.
Just a couple years ago in Brooklyn, a fan jumped the rails to tackle a wrestler because they got duped on their DMs.
What?
They got duped into sending money to this wrestler, Seth Rollins. They got duped into sending like 20, 30, 40 bucks, some shit like that. And because the guy never heard back or whatever it was, he jumped the rail and tackled him during Raw. And
I remember that. I didn't know the backstory on that.
Who was it that got tackled?
They believed it too much. Seth Rollins ended up getting tackled.
Seth Rollins. Oh, okay.
Yeah. So the guy who
fan account pretended to be him.
Yeah, a fan. Yeah, a fan got
over $30. That's pretty pathetic.
It's crazy.
I heard.
So people still believe this shit so much.
Yeah.
I know.
Well, you remember the guy who ran into the fucking cage match? You remember that? I think it was a WCW cage match, and this guy jumped
like Macho
onto the
Man
cage.
beat his ass. Yeah,
Macho Man. Yeah, it was Macho. It was a cage match. Macho Man beat the shit out of him. Also, you got guys going. You got guys going after Kevin Nash, who's 6'8". You didn't want to fuck with Kevin Nash. These guys know how to defend themselves. Trust me.
And Kevin got pretty screwed on his deal. I would, if I ever met him, I would say you played two of my favorite comic book movie villains. You played Super Shredder and you played the Russian in the first Punisher. And, and then I would say you were hysterical in Magic Mike, and you gave a legit good performance in John Wick as the doorman. So,
dude, he was so lazy in Magic Mike.
I know, but his song was pretty catchy.
I know.
But yeah, either way, I mean, it is funny how he was like on some other wrestling podcast, and
he
joking
has his
about.
own.
And he joked, is like, that guy who's playing the Russian in Deadpool and Wolverine, that is not me. That does not look like me at all.
I don't know. Yeah, let me share Kev's podcast because that is an interesting podcast.
Well, when he talks about the NWO and he talks about when they were going to form it, who the third man was going to be, and you find out it was going to be Flair.
No, it was Sting.
Sting?
No, it was supposed to be Sting.
Yeah.
They thought it was going to be Flair. Okay, yeah, you're right, because they said it was going to be Sting.
So that was the cover.
Sting was like, no, I'm not doing that. And then he says the best thing he ever said when he used to have the Legends of Wrestling, that round table thing, he said Hulk Hogan saw that money train and jumped right on it. Because I don't think
he's really the one that fucked it too, because he ruined the payoff with Sting, and you had mentioned it earlier about his contract being so really Hogan's contract always was Hogan gets to decide the ending. No matter what it is, he gets to decide the ending.
So just like Vin Diesel and The Rock and Jamie Foxx do the whole I can't die on screen, he's doing the whole
even at the behest of what's good for the crowd, because what was happening when the NWO was building and Sting wasn't even in the ring, he's in the rafters for 18 months
Yeah.
The number one thing you want to see him do is whip everyone's ass, and Hogan just couldn't lay down for it, and just blew it, and they would have. So, like I said earlier about Cody never losing, had Hogan actually lost to Sting the right way, you would have been so interested in Hogan coming back and just being relentless, being more ruthless, being more brutal, the NWO being more crazy, and he just blew it because he wanted more money in his pocket for whatever fucking reason. Yeah.
And he's got the loudest voice in the room. He's like if a bunch of comedians formed a troupe together, but he has to start and end it all. And it's like, well, there's not much suspense if there's a head face to this whole thing. We got to differentiate it. We got to change it up.
The one thing that happened was that when you look at the Monday Night War, right? It's a couple of things. Number one, for WCW, they had Goldberg come in, right? He was he was a jackhammer, right? You remember what his unbeaten streak was?
163 officially.
Yeah. So I remember Bobby Heenan saying, so he'd have to wrestle he did the average one time, and Bobby Heenan was like, he'd have to wrestle like 3 times a day to get to like his unofficial record, right?
Yeah.
And they're just hyping this up. And secondly, it was Goldberg. It was the NWO splitting to all these factions, right?
Yeah.
It was who's that dipshit that took over after Bischoff left?
Oh, Vince Russo.
Vince Russo.
It was a lot more than just that, though.
Oh yeah.
Way
There
more.
was a lot of shit that finger poke of doom, bringing in whatchamacallit, Arquette to be the champion.
Well, the biggest issue though wasn't all that. It was the fact that, and Wrestling Bios covers this is when you watch it. It was also the fact that they decided to take Thunder's budget out of Nitro.
Yeah.
So every week Thunder aired, it was $450K every week.
Yeah.
So that's what that was part of the reason the company went down. So from the start of Thunder, when it started, there's $450K all the way to the very end. There's so much. And I just finished that shit a couple days ago. Oh, it still hurts.
Did you talk about, did they mention the thing when Chris Jericho said when WCW was put up for sale, he felt he could have bought it?
Yeah. Oh, no, it was actually Bischoff because he put up $63 million for it, but then they said no to him. And I was like, that's bullshit. And then one of the other things, going back to Hogan and his bullshit, Nash mentioned on his podcast about wrestlers' health. Oh, no, it was DDP. He brought up how older wrestlers' health and shit and how they look. And he's like, you see how a lot of them carry themselves and they don't want to get help, whereas certain ones like Jake the Snake and Buff and all the other ones came to him for help.
Yeah.
And did better for themselves as a result. Even Kevin Nash quit wrestling completely because he had to get both his hips rotated in because they were so fucked. And every time he's at a convention, people are like, "Oh yeah, you're gonna go again, aren't you?" And he's like, "No, motherfucker, I'm old and retired. I just got my hips fixed."
I think I told him when he was at the convention, I just said, "Just rest. Just rest. You've done enough. Just rest." Because to me, and he started laughing, and I said, "Jesus Christ, you dyed your hair black again? What? Just to bring Diesel out one more time?" He's like, yeah, that was Vince's idea. I was like, "You're gonna do Diesel one more time."
That's so funny.
And then I did that for Greg the Hammer Valentine. I said, "You're gonna lose the belt to Tito Santana and smash it in the ring."
Oh wow!
And then Greg just goes, "Yeah, well, go fuck yourself, Vince." A lot of those old school guys who were under his father, Vince McMahon Sr., when Vince McMahon Jr. came in, it was like night and day.
Yeah.
Because you got to realize with Vince McMahon Sr., you had a proven roster. You had a couple of great champions. You had Bruno Sammartino, Pedro Morales, superstar Billy Graham, Bob Backlund. The minute Vince Jr. took over and bought out his dad, Hulk Hogan, Hulk Hogan. A lot of the guys that were there were going, oh, well,
gotta blow smoke up your ass. Now,
we'll swallow our medicine. We'll take it. A lot of other guys are just like, you know what? Fuck this. I'm leaving.
It's bad medicine, James. So please riddle me this. Is there a cheat code where you can beat up his son in every game? Please tell me there is. Because anytime I saw that, I'm like, vanity, capital V. You're not a wrestler. You're not.
I wouldn't let his son is not a wrestler and he can't drive a car neither. So
isn't that sad? Isn't that sad?
Then
you
his
can't drive a car.
His daughter, unfortunately, his son was in a car accident. And he killed the kid who was with him, or he paralyzed him.
Holy shit! I didn't know that.
Yeah. Nick was driving drunk, and
I thought we were talking about Vince.
That's Hogan's kid.
No, Hogan. Vince's son basically goes to China.
Not to be confused with Jimmy Snuka or Chris Bennett and all these other
Chris Benoit. No.
Yeah,
that's a different story.
That's a different story. That's a story for
See more with Dark Side of the Ring season 1.
Yeah,
watch it all. It's a great show.
I think the one thing that gets me is Hogan was so. I can remember in '89, when they were releasing that video game, there was him on the back of a comic book with the Hulk rules ripping the shirt off.
Which one for '89?
I think it was 90. I don't know which one it was. It was like the 90. It's on the back of a comic book, and they were. Acclaim was gonna put it out, and it was Hogan on the back, and it's like, now you can have WWE wrestling stars on your own home, with the Super Nintendo, or with the Nintendo, and that was coming out, and then WCW beat them to the punch with a game in '90.
Wow,
where you had Ric Flair, Jimmy Garvin, the Road Warriors. I think Dusty wasn't there.
So Visual Concepts does it now. How long did Acclaim have the license, do you think?
Not too long. I don't know really. I gotta think.
You can look it up.
Thinking's overrated. I'm kidding.
Thinking sucks. Let me see here.
I've been wrestled too many times. I don't.
Let me see here. Hold on.
I saw that Ukes also published a bunch.
1990. Wow.
1990.
WCW Wrestling 1990. I never heard of it. I might have to put that on the emulator or something.
We just did a deep cut that Bishop doesn't know. What the hell's going on here?
Well, hey, no, you guys are already rocking me with the wrestling trivia. I grew up in Attitude. I'm a little bit younger than you guys.
But you're still giving us deep cuts on the other behind the curtain stuff.
No, for sure. It's all fun, and that's
we're not here to show off. We're just
no, it's fun to talk.
We're all learning something. That's the point of having a conversation.
That's the other. That is true, Oreo. Like there are people who don't even watch it, but they love it. It's just kind of. It's a mixture between kind of like circus freaks, even the adult film industry, even just kind of stuntmen and makeup. Just there's something about it where it's not that it's a forbidden fruit, but it's just kind of morbid curiosity mixed in with.
It's like social media, but you can't quit it.
It's a little bit of that, except I don't feel guilt when I look at wrestling. I'm just kind of like, I get it. It's meant to kind of be a big stunt show mixed in with all kinds of other stuff. It would be like watching. I don't know. For me, it's
Broadway. It's full contact Broadway.
Full contact Broadway.
There you go.
Shakespeare in the Park, but with unusual fighting angles and. I think just the fearlessness is like, I'm going to be wearing a toga. I'm going to be in bizarre makeup, and and I have to be in character this whole time doing this.
See, the thing is, though, in my opinion, if you were to make wrestling games, there are the fans like me who are like, remember the guys that were there, like adorable Adrian Street and, the great Kabuki and the great Muda, all those guys that were like, the forerunners of who we have out there today. Make a game where it's a game where, and now I know WWE has done it where, I think one of the 2K games you could play like the old school guys, but put a game out where it was like, where I can use the Freebirds, where I can use, the Rock and Roll Express, guys I remember and hardcore wrestling fans will remember.
Yeah, such a game exists, but it was made in Japan.
Yeah, that's what it was,
Yeah.
but the thing I always said too is like when you think about it, the video game market was primed, and that's the thing WWE did. They jumped on that video game market, and they basically were like, okay, we can make more money because kids love video games, and if they love video games, they're going to be, going for it, buying it over and over again. That one wrestling game WCW put out, it did good. The minute WWE came out, bam, went through the roof because kids wanted Hulk Hogan to play with. They wanted to have Sergeant Slaughter,
Yeah.
And this was when Sergeant Slaughter
I thought
turned.
the toys were pretty awesome. I'm not sure who did the toys for WWE.
The toys
Pacific.
Jack Pacific.
No,
Okay.
toys go back to
There's Ringside
Remco.
Collectibles and
Remco.
Remco.
Remco did the AWA. Vern Gagne got a license with Remco, who were basically kind of like they were a big toy company, but they made like the Sergeant Rock figures and all that. Vern Gagne said, okay, I'm gonna put my guys out, and you can buy them in 2-packs, blister packs, and basically you could get like Rick Martel and Baron von Raschke. That's the first time the Road Warriors are done properly. You could get Jimmy Garvin and Ronnie Garvin, Kurt Hennig and Scott Hall, who would become Razor Ramon. You had the Three Birds. You had, Jimmy Garvin. I forgot who else was first. You had Kurt, as I said, Kurt Hennig. You had, I think it was Larry Zbyszko and Nick Bockwinkel. The High Flyers, Greg Gagne and Jumpin' Jim Bronzell. You had all these guys. And what happened was that they went out on the shelves. They didn't sell too well. You had a ring with a ref.
Didn't sell.
They did, but it wasn't. It wasn't
what
big.
they want. All right.
It wasn't what they want. And I have a Baron von Raschke figure that I bought the other day, for like $8. And he's
nice.
the master, Baron von Raschke. That's all the people need to know. And
I love it. Well, so I'm an amateur compared to what you guys' wealth of knowledge is, the trio here. But so IGN in 2014 did do a top 10 WWE games of all time. They have a linked disclaimer showing some polls from members and fans. So going to take this with a grain of salt since it is still corporate media. But I'm going to ask you if you guys recognize any of these or if you've seen flyers for them. They ranked on here. Most of them are all in the 65 to 70% range, which is fair for a game of this type. But they have WWE SmackDown versus Raw from 2004 at number 10.
I remember that.
I mentioned that earlier. They have WWF SmackDown from 2000, which we've been kind of going around on.
Yeah.
They have versus Raw in 2007. It's a little higher rated. They just feel like it's a testament to something being the first, even though it's not too spectacular nowadays. They didn't start to list a triple threat match of The Rock's catchphrases. It's like, stop it. Know your role. Take some advice from The Rock. They have WWF SmackDown 2 Know Your Role from 2000. Then they have Just Bring It from 2001. They didn't go on to list Shut Your Mouth, and I remember that one being promoted a shit ton. That was like in every gaming magazine.
And it was in WWE's Raw and SmackDown magazines too back then.
There you go. They have WrestleMania 2000 from 99, so there you go. And then we go on to 2K24 from 2024. And
I remember that.
It's their highest rated so far. And they have Here Comes the Pain from 03. And then at number 1, they're going to list No Mercy at 80.5%. So
interesting.
I'll let you guys be the judge, though. You are the people.
No Mercy's kind of regarded as the best one, and I think that list goes to exactly what we're talking about. There was a kind of condensed version of how good video games were for wrestling, kind of like early 90, and then all of a sudden this 00 to 06 pocket, there was some good ones, and then not until 24.
They just slagged. Yeah. Oh, and
I have a theory. If you guys, because you'd mentioned about having like some old school wrestlers in the games and things like that. So I don't play many video games now because I'm a reward searcher. So like I like to hunt for trophies, and that doesn't quite exist anymore. So all I really do is play Fortnite with my kid.
Hey,
But
it's fine.
The brilliance of
Family
Fortnite,
time.
yeah, the brilliance of Fortnite, it's the same thing every time, but you're engaged with a new event over and over again. So I thought to
Yeah.
myself, if Madden was like this, I would probably sign up for Madden. I would get the Madden pass and I would play the thing. If
Gotcha.
WWE 2K was like this, I would sign up for the 2K
Get a
pass.
discount.
And-
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I would, because I haven't bought a WWE game in forever because it's not worth it. I bought the Stone Cold one that was on the cover, and by the time I was done doing his career mode, they shut down the server. So I
That's the
couldn't
worst
finish the
part
rest
about
of the
that shit.
games. Yeah, so if it was like if it was a Fortnite style where the server never shuts down and you can continue event after event after event, and you can earn the Great Muda, or you can earn superstar Billy Graham, or you can earn Mr. T from back in the day. Like the mobile game does that every once in a while, but it's not as rewarding. That's almost a more of pay to play than go search and find and have fun. So I would like 2K games and Madden to be more like the Fortnite style, where you can constantly be entertained as you're moving.
Or Mass Effect. They should do like Mass Effect or Destiny, where we take our character that you built. It looks like you in every mod and update and sequel because we've saved your progress. People love that interactive customability. But what happened to Stone Cold? And talk about what an unusual career is. Like he's active in wrestling. He has a brief recurring role as a bounty hunter on Nash Bridges or a cop. And
I
then,
remember that shit.
And then after doing the Expendables, he does some like 10 direct-to-video action films and comedies, and then gives it up, starts coming back to wrestling events once in a while. But for now, he pretty much just posts photos of him hanging out with his friends, hunting trips, and his cat, or going on, or producing reality shows. And you're like, but you had kind of the persona that would have been perfect for a Roddy Piper type.
I always say this with Stone Cold. There was a guy, Arn Anderson, in the WWE, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Arn Anderson was a member of this group called the Four Horsemen.
Yeah, WCW.
Arn was the template for Stone Cold, okay?
Yeah.
Take ass, take names, you don't fuck with them, all right? Stone Cold, when you hear about Austin's career, he was basically in WCW as part of the Hollywood Blondes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Brian Pillman. Okay.
Yep.
Then he leaves. He goes to ECW. Okay. And then he doesn't wrestle. He just basically
riffs on Vince.
Riffs on wrestling, right?
It's beautiful. It's so funny.
And then he's like, all right. So he goes back. Because he wasn't. Yeah, he was riffing on Vince Russo because Vince Russo fucked him over so much. Then what happens is that
Did Vince get tired of that and be a bad sport, or did he not
Vince
care?
Russo fucking hates him, for doing all that shit. And then what happens is that he comes into the WWE as the ringmaster, and the first thing he does is he fights Jake the Snake Roberts at the Royal Rumble, and he says. And by that time, Jake Roberts was becoming born again. I don't know if that was his character in real life, but what he does is he says, you can thump your Bible, you can say your Psalms, but Austin 3:16 says, I just kicked your ass, and boom, he took off, and he wasn't the ringmaster anymore.
Yeah, that's right.
Speaking of Jake the Snake, Dallas Diamond Page, Oreo turned me on to an awesome reality show that Dallas Page hosts, which is basically people transforming their lives for fitness. And it's not like The Greatest Loser or anything where someone has to lose.
It's not scripted at all.
It's not scripted. It is literally all these different just workout tips and tricks. And the only thing in suspense is who's going to progress faster. But everybody's a winner. And so it's a very unusual thing. You can watch it on Tubi and YouTube. And I was just like, oh, the nerve, a reality show that's positive. And that's the only thing.
That's what DDP is, man. He's very positive and very uplifting.
I love him. He is good.
He's the guy I can remember when I'd watched WCW. If he was in the ring, I was like, I like this guy. This guy's good, And then you find to come to
This
fact,
guy's good. Yeah.
he was over 40 when he was wrestling. You know, where most guys are throwing it in. He's, you know, he was in the ring and
insane.
And he was one of these guys. He says, "Look, I tried yoga, and it works." You know, and he had guys there. He has Lex. He's now working with Lex Luger, who had a spinal stroke, and
Nice.
Lex Luger was inducted into the Hall of Fame, and he walked.
Yeah.
He walked. He had a little thing with him, but he walked.
Yeah.
And you know, Lex was in a wheelchair the whole time before that, and he said, "We're going to get you walking again."
Yeah,
I
because
know
he
we
got
can get
both
you
his hips replaced.
Yeah, yeah. And you know, I think
Are you telling me
Nashville
there's
did some
optimism
too.
in this world? I love it.
You know, yeah, that's the great thing about him, man. He's very optimistic, you know.
No.
And
Everybody loves getting off on other people's suffering. I'm like, what is wrong with humanity?
Trump.
I don't.
let me ask you guys a question. Do you guys ever go back and watch those old like wrestling tapes from the 80s and the 70s and
I'll see
shit?
some fights shared on my YouTube feed and I'll watch out of curiosity, and it can be fun just also just seeing the different kinds of crowds, how they were filmed, and the coverage is way different compared to when they, you know, throw money at the wall where there's, you know, now crane shots and, you know, just doing
Commentary
funny.
really tells the story.
The commentary
You can-
changed. Well, and then you get the late 90s, especially when it would air on UPN a lot, where let's actually show them backstage doing
Yeah.
wacky skits. Hey, you want to go? You want to go? And they have a pre-match face-off, you know?
When Vince had his little, you know, his they would always do something where the story would play out during the show, like through interviews and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
And Vince would do these things where you had Piper's Pit, and you had the Body Shop, and you had you know, the bar the salon with Bruce the barbecue. Like I can remember them building up the whole Andre the Giant thing just through Roddy Piper's Pit. Okay, I can remember seeing the Rockers break up on, you know, on Brutus the Barber Beast. Yeah, the barber shop. I can remember watching, you know, who was it also on the Body Shop, you know, Andre the Giant coming on wanting to take on you know, King Kong Bundy or something like that after he had his haircut.
What a
you know.
great name. Bundy.
Chris Pellis was a great guy. I loved him. I was friends with him.
Really?
Online.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Funny guy. We talked a couple of times about, you know, the old days when he used to wrestle. And he said, yeah, they bill me as 500 pounds or something like that. He was really only about maybe 350, 400.
Mm-hmm.
But what they would do is they give him an extra small singlet. So it looked like he was bigger than most of the guys. And he said
I saw
that was the
I
trick.
saw him wrestle at a house show. He wrestled Sid. He wrestled Psycho Sid at a house show. The very first wrestling show I ever went to was in 97, 98. Yeah, they were the main event. The only other wrestlers I remember there were the Bushwhackers, which was awesome.
And they're both gone now. Damn.
No, one of them's still around.
No, he died too.
Sid and Bundy.
Sid and Bundy are gone, yeah, but one of the
Sid and Bundy are gone,
Bushwhackers is still alive.
Do you guys ever go on cagematch.net where you can post in the forums and commentate on famous matches?
No.
No.
Yeah. That seems to be a pretty popular one just because people will just weigh in on just how the match went and go a little step further, just saying, yeah, just it was a pretty lame tag team, but interesting finish. Is like, and again, I think that's what's so wild about wrestling is like, if you're not into sports, that's your sport. Like that is your commentary. That is your event that you want to be a part of every time. If it's not NASCAR, that's the one.
My friend Randy wanted to be a wrestler, and he was going to save the money to go to. There was a guy around here,
James,
Johnny
I had no
Rods.
idea.
Johnny Rods. He was around in my area, and he was a professional wrestling trainer. And him and this kid Mike Flood, they were going to go become professional wrestlers. And unfortunately, you know, Randy just was kind of like, nah, I can't do it, you know. But the thing was that back then, Johnny Rods operated, I think, out of Patterson. And he had a gym, and I remember, you know, they were talking. He's like, yeah, you know, they featured him on the news. He was one of those guys. He was what you call a jobber, which is a guy who puts people over.
Mm-hmm.
Because the technical term is a jobber.
Yeah.
But he puts guys who are on their way up over, and he was a good wrestler too. But
But he's
what
a
nobody,
people person also, so that's good.
yeah, he had people come. Dominic DeNucci, who was from the WWE, had a place over in Pennsylvania,
Mm.
and you know who trained there with Dominic DeNucci? Mrs. Foley's little boy, Mick Foley, trained with Dominic DeNucci. Yeah.
Hey, it all comes together. It's a small world, but that's neat though that they can call each other these mentors. These instead of just I'm influenced or I just aped your style, you know. Or
Well, you had to go to a trainer back then, and a couple of these guys were real good. A couple of these guys were just shit. The one I remember is Mad Dog Buzz Sawyer, the Undertaker, talked about. Well, he lived in Texas, and Mad Dog Buzz Sawyer was like in the same area. So he said, "All right, you can pay me $20 now. Meet me here at 6:00 Tuesday morning." So him, the Undertaker, and a couple of his buddies went. They knocked on the door. They looked inside. The place was vacant. He basically took their money and ran. Yeah,
fuckers.
But there were guys who would train you like
It's like the lowest form of being ripped off. Usually it's by gunpoint or a scam where click on this link and let me steal your credit card.
Seth Rollins owes me $50.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah,
It's just very angering.
The best guy to train under back then, the one I've always heard was Stu Hart, who was Bret the Hitman Hart's father. They lived up in Calgary, Alberta, and they had a house, right?
Yeah.
And the house, Stu Hart had 7 or 8 kids. And so the story goes is that he would have these guys come in. Stu was like in his 50s and his 60s. So these guys come in who are half his age are coming in to train under him. And Stu's putting him in moves, breaking them in half. And Bret Hart said when he was a teenager, when he was a teenager growing up, his room was like above there. So he could hear Stu yelling out, going, "That's pain, son. That's pain." The guys were going, "Shit, shit," and they would just fall asleep to that noise downstairs. And they had a ring built in the basement, where you could run around and shit. And then there was who was it also? Japanese guy, Hiro Matsuda. He was in Florida. He trained Hulk Hogan.
Gotcha.
And the first time Hulk Hogan went there, he wasn't paying attention. Hiro Matsuda basically hit him on the leg and broke Hogan's leg. Yeah.
You crippled me, brother.
Yeah. And then there was Vern Gagne's camp up in Minnesota where basically he had a farmhouse.
That's smart.
And the farmhouse, he ran it for I think maybe 25 years. He had a farmhouse and all these guys would go up there to train. And he had guys come out of there like Sergeant Slaughter, Ric Flair, I think Dusty Rhodes, Chris Taylor, who was like an Olympic wrestler, heavyweight wrestler, the heaviest wrestler of all time, came out of there. I think Piper trained with Judo Gene LaBelle.
That's right.
Sweet.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, Judo Gene LaBelle, who made Steven Seagal shit his pants.
Steven
Seagal,
I don't have any toilet paper.
So Bob, the guy who's Bob Sergeant Slaughter said you went up there and it was him. The Iron Sheik was training you there too because he had come out of that school, so he was a trainer there. Basically, what it was there were surplus army cots and blankets, and you would sleep in the barn. Right? You'd get up, you'd run 5 miles, come back, do your wrestling, eat breakfast, wrestle some more, learn your moves, all this shit, go back to bed, get up at 5:00 in the morning, repeat. It was always a repeat. And they said guys who came out of there were
repeat.
Yeah, we're great wrestlers,
Yeah.
What did you think also about with the crossover with MMA fighting, where you take both martial artists and wrestlers, and you're having to learn all these grappling moves?
I think in the 90s it was a really good experiment because
TNA,
Ken Shamrock came over.
Ken Shamrock came over, and I think
it was so believable. Steve Blackman too. And Dan Severn as well.
Severn.
for me, it was Shamrock always solidified to me the difference between wrestling and MMA, because here's a guy that can kill everyone in there, but would lose because of wrestling. And because he wasn't allowed to go MMA, he couldn't be as brutal because that's against the rules. So, so watching that blend back then makes it all make sense to me now. So, like when Ronda Rousey came in and Shayna Baszler and these MMA people from today, it's like, oh well, shit, they are badass, but they do have to play by wrestling rules. How is that going to? So I buy into it that way. It's not just hey, like. Fake fight over here, real fight over there. No, there's different rules here. That's how.
Like the shit with Daniel Powder and Kurt Angle. That shit was funny because he almost broke Kurt's arm when he brought him in the ring because Kurt was told not to call on him. Kurt did it anyway, and Daniel put him in an arm bar, almost snapped his fucking arm. And because they were going by original wrestling rules in the ring, which was
prison rules.
Yeah, 1 count. But since it's WWE, it was a 3 count. Because if they'd just, rang the bell, fans wouldn't have understood what happened.
True.
So they made it a 3 count, and he broke the hold on him. But yeah, Kurt was like, "Yeah, I learned my lesson that day." Still didn't care.
There's the thing where certain wrestlers are doing MMA moves. Because the Undertaker was doing the Gates of Hell. What was that one that he did? But you guys don't realize is that back in the day, there was a match between Antonio Inoki and Muhammad Ali that was broadcasted. That was closed circuit TV. And it was the night from Shea Stadium where Hulk Hogan wrestled Andre the Giant the first time. This is 1980 we're talking about.
Okay.
And Ali was fighting Inoki, and it was like holy crow, it was kind of like it was kind of like the forerunner to what MMA was going to be,
Right.
You have
also
Antonio.
You couldn't look away. You're like, whatever I'm doing right now, I'm going to drop it now and watch this.
Well, and Inoki is one of the one of the most highly respected wrestlers of all time, and if you guys ever want to watch something, watch Bill Burr talk about Antonio Inoki versus the Great Antonio. I've never laughed so hard in my life.
I've heard him bring up some events on some of his stand-up, and he just seems like he knows how to do all the right metaphors when summing up stuff like that.
This is Japan. It's like 1984, 85. And there's this guy called the Great Antonio. He looks like, he doesn't even fucking bathe. He's like 400 pounds. Probably's got like a lot of, bodily odor and shit like that. And there's Inoki coming in with, a robe on with a towel around his neck, looking like a freaking, movie star, right? Which is what he was.
Yeah.
So what happens is they're wrestling, right? And Inoki is like, trying to get him to sell the moves, and Antonio's not doing it. And that's
like, what's going on?
You have to sell the moves, right? And Inoki's like, so basically what he does is he hits Inoki a couple times, right? Inoki gets pissed and starts beating the shit out of the Great Antonio. Like he's physically making him, like he's slapping him, but he's slapping him so hard, like his face is turning red. Then he starts punching him and kicking him, and he's making the guy bleed out. This wasn't a cut job. This was Antonio Inoki being pissed because the guy he's wrestling is not selling him. And it's Burr. When Burr talks about it, it's fucking hilarious,
Oh, yeah, there was another instance with that, too, because the guy he wouldn't take off his helmet.
Yeah.
Yeah, that motherfucker. I was like...
If you remember, there's stories going around where guys were not safe in the ring. Like, you hear about Bruiser Brody, the guy who got shanked down in Puerto Rico.
Yep, that's right.
By one of the invaders.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what that was over. It was over money or some shit like that. I don't know.
What the fuck was that over? It's some argument Bruiser had with one of them, and The only person that's ever given an account on that's Tony Atlas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Atlas was called by Abdul the Butcher.
Yeah.
And said, "You better get out of here, or there's going to be problems." And like I think Abdul the Butcher left after that too, because the guy who was they were trying to get the accounts from, like Carlos Colon, shut his mouth, because he was regarded down there, a lot of, but supposedly if you ever watch this tape, Manny Fernandez gets even with the friggin' Invader. Because he does knee drops right to the Invader's chest, and they're connecting. They're not. They're not. They're
bounce offs.
And you see the Invader start spitting blood up. Oof. He's broken. He's broken ribs and shit. Yeah. And that was because everybody liked Bruiser Brody, but now you find out later, Bruiser Brody was a real asshole to a lot of people. He never played it safe in the ring.
That's why I also kind of came to respect it. I was taught stage combat when I did theater and training in college, and so it was like, it's the same kind of deal. It's like you're hit me without actually, causing damage. Don't put pressure into it. Just imitate the move and then soft landing. It's like
when they're in that ring, there's points they're talking to each other because the camera goes away, and they're going like, all right, arm bar, okay, put me in the arm bar, okay, put me again, okay. It's like they give directions in the ring, and then the ref has an earpiece in there, and they're telling them what to do. Mm-hmm. So it's like
Bishop,
I can remember.
Do you have a favorite commentator or referee?
Oh Jesus, commentator!
Well, Earl Hebner as a referee always was part of the match.
Stupid as hell.
And like made you believe that rules counted, because like nowadays rules don't seem to count like they used to. Commentary, I actually think Vince McMahon and Jesse Ventura are highly underrated. A lot of people hate Vince McMahon as a commentator, but I think Vince and Jesse together are really good. But I also grew up in that era. I look back on Jim Ross and Jerry Lawler, and I think it's just horrible.
The mainstays.
Really bad at telling those stories. So like today I really like Corey Graves because he's a former wrestler who actually names the moves as they're happening. So if you're an ill-informed wrestler or ill-informed fan or a lapsed fan, you can like sink back into what wrestling is by listening to what he has to say. So and there's not many of that today.
That's true.
My favorite of all time will be the immaculate greatest duo of all time, Gorilla Monsoon and Bobby Heenan. Gorilla and Bobby were the gold standard in my opinion, and Gorilla and Jesse. When they called WrestleMania 3, and even Ventura was like, "I don't believe it. I don't believe it." After
it's a conspiracy.
I don't believe it, Gorilla. If I saw it with my own two eyes, and then
he calls him Gino all through the broadcast. It's you know what, Gino.
This guy's. If it was a dud match, if they would just start talking about something else, like what are your plans tonight, Gorilla? Oh, I think I'll go home and just watch some television. It's like, because if it's a squash match, it's the one I love is when whenever it was Bobby Heenan and Gorilla Monsoon, and it was going to be a match. None of Heenan's guys were involved, but it was this guy. It was like, he in one point goes. I don't know what Gorilla, right now I'm just bored out of my mind. I don't know what this guy's doing in the ring. He says, I don't know what's he trying to do, Bobby. I said, I don't know. I've been in the ring with a lot of guys, and I try to figure out my guys sometimes what they're doing in the ring, but I know what they're doing because they're my guys. This isn't one of my guys.
We're playing chicken here. We don't know what going on.
And it's like it's fun, but there were certain guys that I liked. Gorilla and Bobby. Tony Schiavone and David Crockett for WCW when they were there, and then Tony Schiavone when he Bill Mercer down in Texas was great because he was just him alone, and he would have a guest sometimes come in. But I think Bobby and Gorilla were like the best ever, And when the sad thing I always found out, is like when Bobby left. WWE, and he was leaving. They left that night. They went to the hotel, and
Bobby Heenan, Gorilla called Bobby. He says, Bobby, you busy? So he came over. He brought him a whole bunch of flowers. And they sat down and cried for like an hour because they didn't want him to go. His contract was up. And he was going to WCW where you know he didn't have to work all the time.
Yeah.
He would call the match. And did you notice something different about Bobby when he was calling the matches down in WCW?
He was happier.
He was happier, but he didn't take the side of anybody like he used to, you know?
No.
Wild.
You know,
Well, there, just the one time. Just the
Maybe
one
they
time.
just give him a pay
Hogan
increase.
Hogan turns heel and he says, "I told you. I've been telling you for years." It was amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
And the one
In that
thing,
moment, I've been telling you for years.
the one thing I've always said too is that when it comes down to it, when you think about announcers, I like Wade Barrett as the announcer. I like him as an announcer. I do. Corey Graves is good. Wade Barrett, you know, I think he's a good announcer. I think Scott Stafford, when he was there for a while, when he was doing Raw, he was a wrestler and then he became an announcer, and now he was doing sports on Channel 11. Jonathan Coachman, that always cracks me up.
Coachman, one of the
Coach goes from there to ESPN, and I'm like, yeah, weren't you like?
It happens. Like
you
they
know.
went all over the fucking place.
Just shared the Mother's Day wrestling clip from '92.
Yeah, it's my favorite clip of Bobby Heenan and Gorilla together. It's them discussing Mother's Day.
Oh God, no, the one I was.
remember it?
Oh, I'm trying to think of it. What was it? Shit.
So he basically says, Gorilla's like, "Well, what did you do for Mother's Day?" And he's like, "Well, my mom did this for me, did that for me. She bought me this." He's like, "What?" He's like, "Yeah, well, I made her a mother." You know, it's like,
Oh my God! Let's
My
not do it
favorite-
now.
My favorite was they were hosting there was a midget wrestling match back then, and
God.
Bobby Heenan made Gorilla break when he said, "What do you call a toilet for midgets? A little John." And Gorilla just started breaking up like crazy. But my favorite is like when he's like he's pretending he's calling George Slaughter, of laughing. He's like, "I got Miss Betty upstairs calling George Slaughter." He's like, "What? Wait, I can't hear anybody on the phone. I can't. What? I can't. No. Well, can you hear me?" And then Gorilla takes. He's got the mouthpiece for the phone in his hand, and he goes, "Give me that." And he's trying to screw it back. He says, "Can't give me phone calls, can you, there, Bobby? Huh? And he says, shut up. You know, that's what made them so good. You know, Bobby knew Bobby was having fun, and that's the thing. You know, when he was having fun, then things would go well. I think when he left, and they gave it to McMahon and Piper was good. And Macho Man, and then JR came over with Jerry the King Lawler.
Yeah.
That was fun. I didn't like Jerry at first.
He's been doing the rounds on a lot of podcasts lately, sharing Andy Kaufman stories and other celeb encounters.
Oh God, I remember seeing that one of the matches he did. Andy Kaufman on that.
He's all about being unpredictable.
I saw the video of that pile driver that he took, and Jerry thought he killed him. and he's like, he just says, "Are you all right?" He's like, "Are you okay?" He says, "Just keep doing what you're doing," And he's like, so they take him out, and he's got the neck brace on, right? And then when you watch Man in the Moon, you realize later it was all just a work. That's the great thing about it when you see it's like Bob Zamuda sitting there with him, and he's like, "Well, what'd you think?" And it cuts to Jerry Lawler. He's like, "You know what? That's the best time I've ever had in my life doing that with you, Andy." He said that whole thing, I'm from Tennessee, and that whole thing was a great thing to do. That brought wrestling a little more into the spotlight back then.
Speaking of Man on the Moon, that was also the hardest film for Jim Carrey because he had a hard time letting go of that role. He couldn't get out of the character.
Piss people off the whole time. So yeah.
Who's my favorite? Let me see. Commentators. I love Joey Styles because
God,
he was so goddamn good.
he was in ECW, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
ECW, and then he came WWE, and he just tore it up, and then he left. Then I got into TNA, and it was Mike Tenay and Don West, and I love that combination so much. I miss
Don
Don
West from the old home shopping.
Yes. So actually, I have baseball cards here that Don West sold me. Oh man, where are they? I wish they were close so I can show them to you. Just shouts to Don West. He's a legend.
Opie and Anthony used to make fun of him all the time because they'd be like, "Here we have this Dave Trevecki's art, be dialing," you know.
Yeah.
Here we have the Lindbergh babies rattle, one time only, signed by Bruno Hauptmann. Be dialing, you know.
Honestly, if bodybuilding hadn't worked out, I would have been surprised if Schwarzenegger would have been a wrestler. You know, he's smart enough.
Well, you know, the
So
thing
many
was
celebs who could be.
Vince had a little brief stint as a bodybuilding guy when he made the
Got the wax
WBF.
on wax off.
Yeah, you know.
I think Arnold was good friends with Bruno Sammartino too.
They were good.
Yeah.
He was good friends with Bruno Sammartino, and not only that, he's the godfather to superstar Billy Graham's son or daughter.
Get out.
So he definitely would have been in wrestling. Yeah. If movies and bodybuilding didn't go all that way, for sure would have been in it.
He played a wrestler in Stay Hungry. He was a bodybuilder, but he plays a wrestler in, you know, he wrestles as a bodybuilder.
Jeez.
So the thing is that was the thing. And then Arnold said that Billy Graham and him used to hang out. And Billy Graham and him were good friends. And Arnold was like the first guy to hold his daughter because Billy Graham was on the road when his kid was born. And what happened was that, you know, Bruno Sammartino,
Wayne Coleman, for those following, not the pastor, not the televangelist.
No, superstar Billy Graham.
Superstar Billy Graham.
Who I think basically, you know, was a great wrestler. Unfortunately, you know, he had his falling out with Vince, but it wasn't over with Vince. It was over the steroids.
Yeah.
You know, if you ever read about that, you know, he wasn't going to be in the Hall of Fame for a long time. And they got him in, I think, a couple of years before he passed away.
Yeah.
And he was magnetic. He was like, you know, he'd come in the ring dressed in tie-dye and, like, you know, have his hair long and, you know, big muscular body. He was kind of like Hulk Hogan.
Yeah, that's who Hulk Hogan stole his stuff from.
Hulk Hogan. Hulk Hogan borrowed from Dusty Rhodes
and Billy Graham
the theme of the Common Man, and then the great, you know, the outfits. So that's what happened.
It's me, brother. I made it myself.
Yeah, I have a superstar Billy Graham figure. Still in the case. But it's him with the goatee.
We're gonna have to exchange action figures. Do you, what
I got him. I got Piper. I got Flair. I got Rhodes. I got Dusty in the polka dots.
Dusty in the polka dots is legendary. I had actually a spiral notebook as a kid with Dusty in the polka dots. Loved it. But all mine from a kid, they I changed residences. Long story short, I moved from living with my mom to living with my dad. And in that time span, she gave all my shit, all my Ninja. So I was born in 85. Okay. So in 1990, 91, when I'm full on action figure mode, you guys know that era. So all my G.I. Joes, all my Ninja Turtles, all my wrestlers got hand-me-down to some kid that was a friend of the family, and they got lost in the shuffle with that family. But what I have now is I got it all back together.
Oh, shit.
I have my Ninja Turtle wrestlers. Sweet. So that's what I have now. I got, let's see, it's John Cena as Michelangelo, Sting as Raphael, Donatello's The Undertaker, Macho Man is, he's Michelangelo, Cena is Leo. Then there's Finn Balor as the Demon as Leo, The Rock as Raph. We got the Ultimate Warrior as
Super Shredder.
Donatello. I wish, right? Just put him as Diesel.
Piper.
That would work.
I see Piper.
Yeah, Piper is Michelangelo. So yeah, they all come with
same kind of short temper. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So they were done really well. that's the only action figures I have. Is I saw those at Walmart. I bought them all when I could. I got some solid deals. I don't think I'll ever get rid of them. And I have an 11-year-old
Isn't
who's
that
wanted me to
funny,
take him out the
though?
box since he was 7.
It's
Yeah.
funny though, like it's common with every household. It's like dads will just tease you saying, "Well, you're playing with your dolls." It's like it's not dolls. Shut up, Dad. I mowed the lawn last week. And moms go, "Oh well, I guess you don't like it anymore. You're a big boy going to college." It's like,
Yeah.
no, I will never abandon my inner child.
My mom,
I will
God
let you know.
bless her.
I will
My
sell
mom
it if
got-
I don't want it anymore.
My mom, God bless her, kept all my toys, but then we had raccoons come in the attic and shit.
No.
Oh.
So a lot of my shit got ruined, and I was like,
Fucking
"Fuck,"
raccoons.
So I'm gonna build it up, one piece at a time again. Like there's some stuff I was like, I can't replace it. It's ruined. I can't.
Yeah, I went through that.
Cam, I know we're still waiting for the Millennium Falcon. I don't know where the fuck that went.
It's funny. We have a running gag, and we're gonna probably do it every other episode where I have shipped James some merchandise as a friend and just as being just a great comrade on the show, and yet doesn't matter how I avoid holidays, everything's getting stuck in transit. And it seems like it was pretty common the last year. Everyone had their shit stuck in the mail to where it's like, Jesus, do I just have to make another phone call complaint and say where the hell is everyone's stuff?
Yeah.
The minute it comes here, I'll be like, hey, it came here. I'm not breaking your balls or anything. I'm just saying.
No,
dude,
if it takes all the rest of the year, I guess so be it. But as long as it gets there, Jesus.
But when you talk about wrestling and all that, the multimedia, like the way it was done was in the 80s, it just hit. It was like a tidal wave. The 70s
It was
didn't have
infectious
that.
fun. Yeah.
The 70s didn't have that. I think the thing with the 70s was that, it was still kind of like, the smoky, the smoky arenas and shit like that.
Yes.
And then it got to be where guys were watching the NFL and the NBA, and they were looking at movies and all that, and they were like, hey, why don't we just make, like, people want real life superheroes, and that's what it was. I can remember, like, my father talking to me when he was in his 50s watching Bruno Sammartino.
Yeah.
But then my mother used to tell me stories about when TV was in its infancy. There was a guy named Gorgeous George.
Yeah.
Gorgeous George was like the first big wrestling superstar.
Mm-hmm.
And there were guys like, the Swedish Angel and Tor Johnson. Time to go to bed.
I love Tor, but he was a wrestler back in the day.
Tor, like all these guys. And my mom said, your great grandmother used to watch it every Friday night. Channel 5 Dumont Network. Dennis James would do wrestling. And he would he would like, he'd be like, that's an arm bar, mother, like that kind of stuff. And, that's what it was. But the 70s, when the 60s and the 70s came around, you had bona fide superstars. You had Bruno Sammartino. You had, guys like, Lou Thez and Vern Gagne, who was wrestling till I think he was like in his 60s. All these guys. And, it's when Vince came along and said, you know what? I see the big playing field of everything. And these guys, these other promoters, these old guys.
You have a
don't see
game
it.
plan, Bruno? I love it.
Yeah, that's what it was. It was the idea of seeing the whole spectrum and going, look, wrestling's not for idiots. It's for everybody's going to enjoy it. Everybody comes to it. We're going to have, crossovers. That's why Cyndi Lauper came over. That's why, the Rock and Wrestling Connection came over. And then everybody started following it up. Because I remember, like, one year they did in Texas, I think it was Waylon Jennings and wrestling match.
Yeah.
Like a wrestling card. I was like, holy shit.
Those always sell out big, giant stadiums. They will always host them there alongside with exclusive music guests, and I can never believe it. And parking is always a nightmare.
But like the one WrestleMania I went to with Kathleen, that was unbelievable. We didn't get out until like 1 a.m. because that was the night they had it at the Meadowlands, and they couldn't get the freaking buses to run. So people were stuck there, taking lifts and Ubers, back to their hotel rooms and getting at the clock, getting a few hours sleep and catching the flight home or the train home.
Oh my word!
Was that the one in 2018? when
that was
they went 7
2019.
hours.
2019.
Yeah, when they went
Yeah.
7 hours. Yeah,
Yeah,
that was
and that's why they do it now in 2 nights.
2 nights now. Yeah,
You know,
last time they went that long.
Wow.
the first WrestleMania, I remember it started at like 1 o'clock or 12 o'clock. It started 12 o'clock in the
Really?
day.
Wow.
Yeah, and then because it was at Madison Square Garden, so you started at 12 o'clock. It didn't get done until about maybe 5 o'clock. You know, because
Are
you had
you
all
not
these,
entertained?
and Vince's ideas were like, okay, we'll make ice cream bars. We'll make, we'll
Where
do
are my
this.
ice cream bars?
Did you hear the story about the ice cream bars?
No.
It was
this goes
it was
under
a
merchandise.
it was a small dairy farm in Minnesota, and they didn't expect the ice cream bars to sell out that good. But anyone who had them back in the day knew how great that ice cream was. It was a popsicle stick ice cream sandwich, basically a sugar cookie on two sides of an ice cream, and your printed wrestler on top of it. So you get a Macho Man ice cream bar, a Hulk Hogan ice cream bar. They were fucking amazing. And when they tried to relaunch them, I think it was Bruce Pitcher's podcast that he said this. They tried to relaunch them. That farm no longer exists, so they couldn't get the same milk, same ice cream, none of that. So they couldn't actually recreate those bars again. Crazy.
That'd be wild if the creator passed away, the manufacturer passed away, so now he took that family recipe to his grave.
Right?
I used to laugh my ass
bottle.
off. I used to laugh my ass off about that because my father was like, my dad was like, "Hey, Dad, can we get WW ice cream bars?" And he looked at me like, "What are you fucking nuts? We're eating Eskimo pies in this family. Shut the hell up."
Thanks,
Dad.
Dad.
My mother was like, "Okay, we got you something from the store. What is it? A wrestling figure? Who is it? Is it Hulk Hogan? Is it? No, we got you Big John Studd. Oh, thanks, Mom." I remember, the one year I got Hulk
ignore what
Hogan,
icons on there and just enjoy the taste, whatever's left there.
I remember I got the Hulk Hogan action figure in LJN. It was just basically vulcanized rubber with paint on them. They didn't have the movable parts. It was, oh God, yeah. I mean, you could throw them against the wall. 2 weeks later, your George the Animal steel would all be scuffed up, and you're trying to find magic marker to put back where the paint's scuffed up and everything. And the thing was that when
it's
when
good smoothie flesh wound.
And when LJN had the right idea, I mean Remco had the right idea. Just use the He-Man model for what we have here. Make them movable parts, and then they can, they won't go crazy. But the LJN stuff was like vulcanized rubber, and you paint, it was painted on, and they all were smiling. Like Andre the Giant. Andre the Giant's figure had two variations: long hair and short hair. Short hair was rare to get. Everybody had to find the long haired one, right? So the short hair one was like the rare one. So my friend Randy said, "Oh, I got a surprise." I was like, "Come upstairs." So we go up to his room. He's got Andre the Giant with long hair, Andre the Giant with short hair. And I'm like, "You I was like, "Dude, how'd you get it?" He's like, "My dad went to this place, Joe Ordini's,
My
down in
dad knew
Patterson."
somebody. Yeah.
His dad knew somebody at this place, Joe Ordini's, which was a pool place, like a pool, they sold pool products, but they had like stuff on, like a toy store on the side, right?
Yes.
So you go in there and be like, I told my dad, "Dad, we got to go to Joe Ordini's." "Why do we got to go to Joe Ordini's?" Because they got good pool supplies. He's like, "No, I know why you want to go down." He's like,
Pool
"What
supplies?
You want to get toys down there because Randy told you." Because Butch told me where he gets his stuff too. His father, who just passed away. And I'm like,
Rest in peace.
I'm like, "You son of a bitch! You're not going to take me down, are you? You're not." He eventually took me down about a year later, and I wound up getting George the Animal Steel, and I think I got Roddy Piper with the removable kilt.
Oh, nice.
I wanted to get. I think I had Paul Orndorff, Mr. Wonderful, and Paul Orndorff was doing an interview. He's like, "You see that? Yeah, that's how I really looked." He says, "No, he was like buff."
Oh,
He
yeah,
like
he was.
muscular.
He was.
And he
Nice.
says that's Hogan looked kind of paunchy. If you ever see the picture of Hulk Hogan's figure, he looks kind of paunchy.
Andre looks like, they just were like, fuck it, put a big belly on him. It's Andre the Giant. Brutus the Barber Beefcake.
We got to put something on there. We just don't know what.
I mean, Greg the Hammer Valentine didn't. Greg the Hammer Valentine looked like he was having like a mid contraction. His arms were like, you couldn't bend them. You would just put them in the ring and you hit each other like, I'm gonna get you. JYD Junkyard Dog had the worst thing because his was, Jesus Christ, his
Go
was.
for it.
He came with a collar and a chain.
Yep.
He was a black wrestler and he had a collar and a chain, and I was going, "Oh Jesus Christ!"
Like, how'd they ever get away with this? But
How are they
fuck
going
it.
to get away with that? Like Tito Santana. Okay, yeah, we got that. Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. He came out with. He was just like he was just an Oriental Asian figure with the black trunks on. The one I always never wanted was Adrian Adonis. Oh my God! I mean, he looked like your aunt who basically comes over and sweats through her pantyhose.
Oh, gross.
Oh God! It was like they come out. They put him in a dress. Okay, now Adrian Adonis's gig back in the '80s was that he was with Dick Murdoch, and they were known as the North-South Connection. Okay, Jesse Ventura, they were the East-West Connection. Okay, so his thing was he was a biker from Queens, and basically he wore like a leather jacket and a biker hat, leather biker hat, and he'd come to the ring in that. So one time he comes out and his hair is dyed, right? And he's wearing a shirt saying "Relax with Trudy," and I'm like, what the fuck? And then he announces everybody, "I'm gay," like that, and he starts putting makeup on, and he gets really heavy. He was like 400 pounds when he wrestled Roddy Piper. Anytime he was on, I got physically ill. I was like, what the fuck? And a lot of wrestlers were going, they couldn't get away with that today. The guy who got away with it the best was adorable Adrian Street. Have you ever heard of him? He was down in the Mid-South. He was like a glam rocker, but he was big and built, and he could beat the shit out of you if you weren't careful. I remember seeing him walking around. He had like eyeliner on and all this makeup, and I'm like, oh, he's probably, my father was like, Dad, that's adorable Adrian Street. He's like, my father just said, he looks like a fruit. And I'm like, say that to his face. Say that to his face. I'm like, he's like, I wouldn't say it to his face. I'd probably run and hide if I said something like that to him.
Then don't say it, Bob.
And my father was like, Jesus Christ, Jay, you watch this? I'm like, yeah. I'm like, Dad, it's like Kiss. Kiss is like, they're in makeup, It's like, he used to tell me stories about when he would watch wrestling. There would be this guy, Bill Johnson, All-American, and he would lose a match and he would leave town. And 5 months later, he'd come back as like Red Skolnick, Russian Terror. They used to do that back then.
Oh yeah, that's right. Speaking of who the hell? I'm trying to think.
It's either that or it'd be sailors wrestling in their bunks.
Yeah. Oh God. It wasn't Nikolai. It was the other Russian guy.
You mentioned Adonis. I hope you mentioned Adonis earlier. Please tell me he wasn't from a incestuous relationship.
No, let me think. It wasn't. They're not
Great
Volkov.
mythology jokes. Couldn't resist.
Oh,
because there was Boris Zukov, who's the other Russian guy.
It might have been Nick. Yeah, I think it might have been Boris.
There was Nikita and Nikola.
I think
Nikita Koloff and Ivan
Nikita.
Koloff.
Yeah, it was Nikita.
And Ivan. Sorry,
He kept the gimmick up so hardcore that this is true. This is on
it's
Dark
true.
Side of the Ring.
I know where you're going with it. It's gonna be fun.
Yeah, he had a baby girl, and at the hospital, he signed her last name Volkov to keep the gimmick going.
Koloff.
Yeah, Koloff, because
Koloff, yeah.
They didn't want to break it and shit.
He's actually a really good guy in real life, and Ivan's real name I think was Red Bastion. He was from Canada, and Nikita is I forgot his real name, but he's actually from Minnesota.
Yeah,
And
that's the
him,
funny part.
well, this is the weird part. Him, the Road Warriors, Kurt Hennig, Scott Hall, who was it also? The guy who played Dukester the Dump Drosy, Barry Darso. They're all from that Robbinsdale area.
And
Robbinsdale.
Dumpster ended up being the worst out of the bunch.
Yeah, yeah. And when you think about it, like, you know, like Barry Darso, when they were doing the thing about the Road Warriors, he was like, yeah, we used to lift and then we'd go bounce at this club.
Yeah.
Where there were bikers, and the bikers didn't fuck with them.
No,
They said, but they'd say you got to keep your colors out. Don't wear your colors in here.
That would be a perfect comic book superhero origin if someone starts off as a wrestler before they acquire their superpowers and they just test it out on all the bikers who won't leave them alone in the house. Formulaic much? Sorry, I couldn't resist. It is wild though too how, again, like you can't be a rock star if you don't have enough color persona or a bad boy attitude. You definitely can't be a wrestler if you don't have the most zany upbringing. Like that's how you get into entertainment. You gotta have the weirdest deal of dominoes just falling, for it to just occur. But again, my hat is off for, regardless of Vince just being a douche behind the scenes and doing so many wrongs, I do applaud wrestling for becoming a mainstream thing, just like all the sports merchandise stores, just like all the action figures for different entertainment properties. I do think it is lovely to have all these different options and then celebrate these at conventions where they actually get to let them know, hey, you changed my life in some capacity.
No.
Yeah, and they all appreciate you saying it too. I mean, I've had a handful of wrestlers myself. Mick Foley, Sergeant Slaughter, Tajiri, and a couple others. But I just, on it as an adult now, it's just like, hey man, thank you. It's not like
right?
Your favorite. I rode an elevator with Sheamus after Survivor Series.
Oh wow.
And we were ironically getting off on the same floor. And this was in 21. So I was like 37 at the time, right?
Yeah.
And he looks at me like, are you serious, dude? Like we're getting off. He pushes the button and then he like puts his hand up, hey, you too. And I'm like, no, same one. And he looked at me like, are you kidding me? I was like, my hands up. I'm like, seriously, same floor. So, and I just said to him, I was like, look, man, I'm a fan. I said, but my kid actually really loves you, especially when you're a bad guy. And he goes,
right?
Really? I said, yeah, because there's something about your performance that he just enjoys. And he even said to me, he's like, Dad, I know Sheamus is bad and I shouldn't want him to beat up the guy, but I just want him to win so much. And he goes, no, man, thank you. I really appreciate that. And we got off the elevator.
Too close to it. But that's cool that you got to just pick your mind. Is like, have you not looked at your resume lately? You've had some fun. If I do a YouTube compilation video, you got some zingers.
Well,
we talked like another 10 seconds, and I was just like, on some like fan stuff, like I appreciate it. I'm not going to bug you out, but like, thanks, man. And then he goes into his room. I take 2 steps down to my room. And this other guy comes walking down the hallway, and he fanboys out. He's like, "Oh my God, was that Sheamus? Did you get to talk to him?" And also, I'm like, "Bro, like they're people. It's 1:30 in the morning. He's fucking
high. Gotta go to his hotel.
He wants to go to bed.
He could have easily told me, "Buzz off, loser."
He was actually eating a TV dinner from the microwave from the hotel. Like, he's
awful,
exhausted, man. Like, he's mad enough. He had to ride the elevator with me. I don't want to fucking talk to you.
He got in late, super late.
The weirdest thing I think I can remember hearing from a friend of mine was he used to be able to go backstage for a lot of the stuff because his dad knew people at the Continental Airlines. It used to be Brendan Byrne Arena, right? So like,
this is about your third friend who has
I have
someone with special set of skills.
Like they luck out. I'm just like, So one night, he's like, they go back there and he's like walking back there and he hears a voice and he's like, oh Jesus, who is that? And it's Hulk Hogan, like talking to somebody. This is when Hogan, the height of Hulkamania, right? And he says he sees this other guy walking down the hall and he's like,
No, that can't be him. And the guy's talking to him. He was just, hey, how's it going? Blah, blah,
Was
blah,
it
you
in
know.
Florida or just?
No, it was up here in Jersey because they used to have all the stuff here at the Brendan Byrne Arena. So he's talking. He sees the guy. He's looking at him. He's like, "Holy fuck! It's the missing link." Because the missing link was this guy who was like, he had his face painted blue and green. He had a hair horn in the middle of his head, and he used to act real crazy. And it's just the missing link was this guy. He's just this really nice guy, and he got to sign autographs. He met Kamala, the Ugandan giant, and Kamala couldn't sign his name. He would just put an X by his name. He met Andre the Giant while they were there, and Andre was like, he was up to Andre. He said at that age, he was like looking up at Andre. He could look at Andre and like Andre's like region was like right level with his head, And he's like, holy shit. He's like, yeah, my father. He put an arm around my father and an arm around my mom, and I'm just standing in front. And he's like, Jesus. I said, do you have the photographs? He's like, yeah, I lost them. I did see them eventually, but he said he lost them in the flood. We had a flood,
no.
and a lot of shit got taken away. But yeah, like that's the thing. I mean, when you see these guys in their, out of character, like if I saw somebody like Chris Jericho at like my local Stop and Shop, I'd be like, "Hey, you're Chris Jericho, right?" He's like, "Yeah, dude, big fan of yours. Love your wrestling. Love Fozzy. Love the fact that you don't take yourself seriously.
Right.
Like what you've done. Hope the career goes. Hope for the best. But when I see guys freak out and they're like, "Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Mhm.
And what's he supposed to do?
By the way, before we go, oh my god, did you guys ever play? I would see this promoted all the time, and it had an M for mature, so I could never play it. It was Backyard Wrestling 1 and 2.
Oh, Jesus.
Oh, God.
They had a mixture of rappers like Insane Clown Posse, Porn Stars, and independent
Yeah.
wrestlers. And it seemed like that was the discount version, but it sold a bunch. How about Def Jam Fight for LA and New York? Is like, let's mix in
Wrestling
rappers,
Bios likes that
but with
game, actually.
it's like, yeah, let's have rap stars in an ultimate action movie, but they're wrestling each other in underground fighting.
Mhm.
You could have Biggie Smalls. You could have Biggie Smalls and Tupac Shakur in a wrestling match and it'd be a drawer.
Mhm.
I see what you did there.
But yeah, I mean, the thing is, like, when we see wrestlers, I mean, they're modern day superheroes.
Yeah,
they really are.
And you always have to have the bad guy and the good guy. Back then, now it's like the bad guy can be a little good, the good guy can be a little bad. The baby face heel is kind of blurred now. But the thing was, media, especially video games, especially all that, captured that era perfectly. You know who was going to get the boo, you knew who was going to get the yay, and who was going to draw heat and who was going to get a pop. And if you know those wrestling terms, heat is when they're booing the shit out of you.
Yeah.
Pop is when they're cheering you like crazy.
You're right.
Yeah, now
Great
wrestlers today don't give a shit about fans because they want left alone to get to the airport. They hate it.
I've heard the Warriors.
There's plenty of them. There's even, let me see, CM Punk has done numerous posts about this. There's tons of videos. It's really disgusting. Like, there was one video showing Rey Mysterio arriving at the airport, and there's some guy standing there with a display of Funko Pops for him to autograph, and he's like, "No, you're going to sell these on eBay." It's so.
Do you think any of them will try comic books again? Because yeah, I tried the Undertaker comic book from like '99. It is not good. I don't think.
No good. There was a couple years ago. I don't remember what it was, but they did a limited release of, I think it was like 10 comics that were supposedly really good, but they were so limited, I could never get my hands on it. Let me see if I can find that for you. But
yeah, look online. Internet Archive should have them.
Do you ever, when you're talking about guys being total dicks to fans, you ever hear the Ultimate Warrior story?
No,
I haven't.
Taker told us. So it's like Taker's first, maybe second year in the WWE, right? And Warrior is going over like crazy, right?
Yeah.
You know, Hogan's still there, but Warrior's going over, right? So, you know how the Ultimate Warrior, he had like his face on the jacket and all that shit, right? So this kid comes up to him and says, "Hey, Mister, are you the Ultimate Warrior? Can I have your autograph?" And he tells the kid, I think he told the kid, "No, I don't do autographs. Go away." Now, Undertaker is sitting there with his hoodie on. He's got a hoodie on, sunglasses, you know, a baseball cap on, and the kid's dejected. Well, Vince gets wind of this, right? And the Warrior has to issue a fucking apology
as
on
he should.
TV on the air about that. Now, if I was a wrestler and a kid came up to me and said, "Hey, mister, can I have your autograph?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure. What do you got to sign?" He's like, "Okay, yeah, just okay, yeah, here you go. All right, and tell your dad, tell your parents, stay in school. You give them a positive message." Warrior supposedly was the biggest dick in wrestling. I mean,
I can see that. Yeah.
If you watch Dark Side of the Ring, he was going to have an angle, a story with Jake the Snake Roberts. And he basically said, Roberts went and said, "Okay, yeah, we're doing this angle. What are we doing?" He's like, "I'll let you know." And he never heard a word from him. And Jake Roberts was going to make like 50, 75 grand that year, if not a little more, doing that angle. And the Warrior just basically shut it down. And, he basically...
Just say no. What? Don't...
Hey, Cam, we're going to do a podcast.
He also created
a... yeah.
I'll let you know.
We'll leave us hanging.
Yeah,
I guess I'll get...
Ultimate Warrior University. And
what?
Yeah, and stiff people on tuition as well. Yeah.
He pulled a Trump. It goes back to Trump.
Real dirtbag.
He was doing training for kids, like teenagers and shit.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like he would yell at the kids, like, "Hey, I want you to push that thing. If you're in front of 20,000 people and they're yelling, you are not gonna stop." I was like, Jesus Christ, bro.
Yeah.
Fucking no wonder why you died of a heart attack.
Well, no, like watching him come back.
That's
on
karma,
Raw,
James.
It really was karma. Like watching him come back on Raw that night. Like that was wild watching that shit because it was him coming home finally after everything bad happened. But like at the same time, everybody was watching him slowly die in that ring.
Yeah,
it was scary. Like when I look back at that,
he ran in like to the music, right? He had the mask on. And and you remember this, Oreo. He was like breathing heavy, and I was like, I gotta say, doing and I was like sitting there, and I was like, he's got a heart problem.
Yeah.
And we're all kind of like me and Kathleen are watching. I said, "There's something wrong with him.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. There's something wrong with him." And then what happened was that 2 days later he died getting out of a hotel parking lot. Of a massive heart attack. And a lot of people think is because he was on the juice. Because him and Sting were not wrestlers. They were bodybuilders.
Yeah.
Sting got off of it.
Yeah. And Sting got off of it. I remember too.
Yeah, Scott Steiner was on it, but if you think about Scott Steiner, if you see him nowadays,
he looks not basic.
Yeah, he looks basic, but he said in his Big Papa Pump days, he wasn't big. He was smaller, but he worked himself out more. Because if you watch with him and Rick, he was a little bit more chunkier. He basically made himself smaller. But the way they did everything back then. But he said, I think in an interview, he says, "Yeah, I don't do that shit anymore."
Yeah.
He just had a wake up call. His body was going nuts. But he said and if you look at Sting was like that, and then he stopped. He cleaned up. And then he became like, I love the black and white.
Yeah.
The black and white Sting. Yeah, the Crow version of Sting.
I like Joker Sting more.
Sting said recently in an interview, somebody asked him, what would have happened if you and Warrior stayed together? He said, "Oh, it wouldn't have worked. We'd have fought like crazy. Two roided up guys. We just would have been battling like crazy." And the interview looked at him weird. He goes, "I'm just being honest. We were both roided up like crazy back then."
Yeah. when they were the Blade Runners back in the old the UWF days, when they were the Blade Runners, and it was you saw them, you were like, God, these guys are big. Like that's what I liked about the Road Warriors. I don't think they were on roids. I think they just basically worked out like fucking nutcases. And I remember seeing their workout in Pro Wrestling Illustrated. I was like, maybe I should buy a
that
weight
was
set.
a thing. Yeah, what magazines did you read the most for your updates on wrestling?
Oh, geez, just WWE Magazine for the most part. That was it.
Pro Wrestling Illustrated, PWI, and then there was another one, Wrestling Observer,
Nice.
with Dave Meltzer. But PWI was the big one. PWI was the one everybody bought, and they always had the top 10 rankings, and they'd always make these stories up. Like Dusty Rhodes, I'm gonna make Ric Flair bleed. Why Hulk Hogan is afraid of Terry Funk. All that shit. It was
His
all
brother can't stink.
Yeah. Please, that's the
Wow.
one thing. That's the one thing. I watched Terry and Dory Funk wrestle in the NWA through videos, and when they got to the WWE, I was just like, oh boy, oh geez, just make them cowboys, and
that
put a Brandon
dumbass
Iron in
gimmick.
Terry's hands. We're gonna have a good old time that time.
Good old time. Woo wee.
And the thing that separated WWF from WCW was the fact that WCW acknowledged where everybody came from versus WWF, because they were like, oh, brand new talent. And like, no, they were just an ECW.
Right. They've been doing this for years. They're not brand new.
I used to crack up when they used to say like from when Jesse the Body Ventura would come out, he was from Los Angeles, California, and I'd hear it, I'd be like, that's not a California voice, and then you find out later he's from Minnesota. The one I always loved was
I'm from Parts Unknown. You're from
Parts
fucking
Unknown,
Newark,
and the guys
Jersey,
from
Parts Unknown.
Parts Unknown. Dewey Robertson was from Florida. I remember who was it?
What was that? The big guy who danced from Africa.
Akeem?
Yeah, Akeem. That shit was so funny.
All right.
He's from Africa. I'm like, really?
Yeah.
Like, okay.
Akeem was the one man gang.
Yeah.
And he was from first off when I watched him in World Class Championship Wrestling, he was from Houston Street in Chicago. Okay.
Oh,
yeah. And then it's like then he becomes from deepest, darkest Africa. I'm like, the one man gang is a black guy, but he's white. And then somebody said, and then a young Robert Van Winkle said, "Hey, I could do that. I'll just name myself Vanilla Ice."
Did I tell you the story? If I haven't, I'll tell it again.
Super Shredder.
Right?
Yeah.
Go Ninja, go Ninja, go. But
that's actually coming back to theaters next month.
Oh, well, so there you go. But
Yeah,
I had a friend who, a friend of a friend who his cousin was in painting and construction, and they're renovating a house, and they noticed one of their crewmen, his surname is Van Winkle, and they're like, yeah, the gig is up. Are you related to Vanilla Ice, Van Winkle? And he looks around. Yes. I'm supposed to. But he didn't want to say it at first. That was the utter irony. He's like, yes.
I think the thing that always got me was like when I'd watch a guy and it'd be like one time when Demolition came along, right? One of the guys was Moondog Spot or Moondog Rex, and they kept chanting Moondog, Moondog, and they basically like 2 weeks later they got rid of him. They put Barry Darso in, and he was it was Action Smash, and it was like, okay, now we got the guys that we need. But the thing I always used to crack up was, if you guys remember back in '86, there was this
when I was born.
I was
there's this trio called the Machines, right?
Right.
And the Machines were black. There was Super Machine, Big Machine, and there was Super Machine, Big Machine, and there was Strong Machine, right? And they were supposed to be Japanese wrestlers. Well, they go to this, they film this, like Gino Grillin's like, I'm Gino Grillin and I'm in Japan. No, you're actually at a Japanese tea house somewhere in Rhode Island. And then
I swear you get out your Arnold Schwarzenegger soundboard. Come on, don't bullshit me.
and then they're being interviewed, and they go, "Oh yes, we love America, America, itchy bun,
itchy bun."
And I'm like, my father's going, "They're not Japanese, Jesus Christ."
What are we doing here right now?
And then they had it where it was the machine, it was Super Machine, Big Machine, and the regular machine, right? So then you find out who they are. It was
I'll show you a
Blackjack.
machine. It's called
It
my
was
dick.
Blackjack. It was Blackjack. It was Blackjack Lanza, Bill Eddy, and somebody else, and they were all that, and they all had masks on. These like really like they look like Ultraman masks, right?
Ultraman. Wow.
And I'm like, oh, you got to see this shit. You'll fucking laugh your ass off.
That is a name I have not heard in a very long time.
All right, guys, I gotta go.
But
I got work in the morning.
This was delightful, and glad we could wrestle.
Can we
each
do
other.
this again? Can we do this again?
Please. We have a part 2 because Ryan was able to make it. But yeah, we got plenty of life left in this tunnel. But no, Bishop, you're the life of the party. So where can people find Terrible Wrestling Takes? It's on Spotify. It's got YouTube. But
yep. Yeah, so TW Takes Podcast is the gimmick. At TW Takes Podcast on Twitter is the best way to find me. I delve into some other ventures as well, so just check out TW Takes Podcast on Twitter. If you search Terrible Wrestling Takes on all audio platforms, I'm there. I've been running it for 5.5 years.
So what do you do on there? What do you mean by Terrible Wrestling Takes?
So it's about the conversation. So usually I just give my opinion of what I see on TV.
Oh yeah, okay.
I don't
Bunch
tell
of
you
sweaty people hitting each other.
No, exactly. Actually, I think that was my shortest episode. 5 seconds. Sweaty people hitting each other.
Well, and thank you to Good Cop, Bad Cop Wrestling, and the others for introducing me to Bishop. This was a great crossover. And
all I'm gonna say is I have my opinion of Logan
anytime.
Paul. My opinion of Logan Paul. What's your opinion of Logan Paul, JJ? I don't have one. Okay, fine.
He's too incredibly talented and athletic.
I don't know her.
I'll tell you this. Here's one of the main points. One of my first episodes was about Pat McAfee and NXT. And what I realized then about any celebrity, so this is the biggest point about Terrible Wrestling Takes. Any celebrity that jumps into wrestling, especially when they don't have to, thank you.
Yeah.
He made $16 million this week, and he got his head stomped into the announce table. He doesn't need to do that.
Yeah,
Pat McAfee?
I appreciate it.
Pat McAfee?
Yeah,
I think so. Yeah.
Pat McAfee was commentating 5.5 years ago when I first did it. That was before his commentating. He had an NXT run with Adam Cole. So
okay.
Logan Paul this week on Raw got his head stomped into the announce table. A couple days before that, he sold his Pokemon card for $16.5 million.
Oh yeah, that was.
Oh my word!
Does he need to wrestle? Does he have to be there? Does he have to do flips off the top rope to break through an announce table? No.
Does he have to be the brother of a shitty boxer?
Right.
Fair enough.
I felt more sorry for Tyson. Is like, Mike, I know they paid you to lose this fight, but Jesus, did you?
This is the first white guy I've ever fought where he just looked when he looked better than I did. Jesus God.
I can't even talk straight. Yeah. Yeah. Hey, no.
I don't know who's left straight. My jawline or hit. Oh, Jesus.
James, it's been a blast. We will
All
do
right.
it again. Oreo, you brought the heat.
Follow us on the web on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. The podcast is available on Podbean, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Anchor, Apple, and anywhere else podcasts are available. Feel free to review our show and leave comments on any of those sites. Thanks a million for listening.